Okay. All right, you guys. Let's see what we got here. Yes, got it. Okay. Oh my gosh. Let's see
Hold
what
on.
we got here.
My
Yes,
audio.
got it.
Hang on. Now, how about now?
Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
We did it.
Can you see me?
Oh my gosh, I can see you. Can you see me?
I can't. I don't have audio though.
You can't hear me?
Hang on.
You guys, the name of his page is Modern Hunter Gatherers. It
Hang
has
on. I got
nothing
to
to do with
change my audio. I'm
technology.
so
It has
sorry. This is
nothing to do with
crazy. Okay.
technology. Um, okay, so we had
Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you yet. I'm
I
sorry.
can hear you. Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Hold on. He's dealing with a new computer, so let's see. Let's throw this in the chat and see if we can. Yes, I can hear you.
In my headphones. Hold on.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's hilarious to me because I'm like, you've got two highly educated people who, yeah.
All right. Sorry. Can you see me and can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Oh my God. All right. I'm so sorry. The technology, it leads me to what we always joke about, the villains in our health. One of them is glyphosate. We call it glitchosate. When something goes wrong, we just blame it's glyphosate, it's glitchosate. So, all right. Hello. Thank you
Oh
so
my
much.
gosh, we did it. We did it. Okay, so let's see. So here's the thing now, you guys, I cannot see the chat just yet. So I'm gonna let the chat go just for a second because holy moly, we finally did it. And I was telling Dr. Joel that you'd think we would have this figured out by now, two highly educated people. And no, we stumbled. But here's the thing, I usually go through StreamYard and he was like, can we do it through Zoom? And I'm like, I think we can. So
Yeah.
I had to shut down the StreamYard and come in through Zoom. And so now I'm trying to see you guys. I'm trying to see your comments because I definitely want to get your questions answered. We had a lot of people just super excited that you were coming into the show today. And so I want to, why can I not see the chat over on YouTube? So I'm live in, yeah, I can't.
If you click on the chat, on the box, it should come up. It's a little square that'll pop up.
Hold on. Let's see.
I'm used to using Zoom. I do all my podcasts on Zoom, and I've been
Yeah.
through every glitch that you can imagine. I have backup speakers and everything.
I don't see, so this, all I'm seeing is the chat for Zoom, but not the chat inside of YouTube, which is what I'm trying to just get over here. And isn't this fun? Just watch us stumble around on technology.
Well, maybe do you want me to? I can get started on just and then you can continue on. So
all right, so let's just go ahead and we'll forget about this. And if you guys want to just drop questions in anyway, we'll get them answered after the fact. But I just wanted to give a little bit of a backstory. I saw Dr. Joel Gould. I saw him on another podcast interview with Mike Munsell on high intensity health, who is a great website, podcast resource educator in the world of health and wellness. So if you're not following him, please do so. So I heard Dr. Joel, and I've been working with dentists for probably 3 years now, very closely. I truly believe chiropractors and dentists should be working together for the health of the human being. And so when I heard you speaking, I was like, oh my God, you're speaking my language. You're speaking all the things that I want chiropractors and dentists to be able to come together to help for the greater good of the human frame and the human species. So it was really interesting to me when you were talking about how when you were in dental school and you were trained and you learned nothing about wellness, and then suddenly you find Weston A. Price. And so I'm always interested in a good backstory. So how many years were you in the traditional medical dental model?
Right.
And then what was the inspiration for you? Take us through that
Right.
history. And while
Well,
you do that, I'm going to grab
yeah,
my other
go for
computer to try to
it.
get
Go
the
for it.
chat going. Okay.
Go for it. Well, it's actually worse than that. So, my story is that I was a sickly child, and I had a rough upbringing from a physical health perspective. And at the age of 14, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. But prior to that, I had a lot of issues. I was extremely delayed in my development and growth. I had terrible dental decay. I had all my teeth, I had the little metal stainless steel crowns. And I was very sickly. I had rashes. I was always at the doctor, colds, flus. And then I started to gain weight and actually get fat by about fifth grade. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was just a very uncomfortable, unhappy child. I was a crybaby. I was emotionally insecure, and I was just trying to do my best. And I chose dentistry actually as a profession because with Crohn's disease, I didn't think it would be a good fit for me to be a medical doctor because I couldn't be in an operating room reliably, because with Crohn's disease, I never knew when it was going to strike. So I had sort of been heading for dentistry for many reasons. I'm an artist. Most dentists are artists. And I felt like dentistry would be a really great way for me to utilize my skills in art. And also, I loved science. I was a science geek from an early age. And so dentistry was a good fit. And it's actually really interesting because I think that most medical doctors are really blinded and have blinders by their traditional education. And of course, I had a traditional education. I went to regular dental school. I graduated in 1991 from the University of Western Ontario in London, out your way. That's halfway
That's
between
what I thought. I
Toronto and
saw that. I
Detroit.
was like, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
you're from my neck of the woods.
yep. And I graduated and I started work for the government, and it was a really great job. I worked for the Mobile Dental Treatment Program, which was me with a 1970 something wood panel station wagon, where I would go to a school in Northern Ontario, so north of Minnesota. And I would set up in a school. I would take every single kid into the room that we had set up. I would clean their teeth, take x-rays, and then make a treatment plan for them and fix every kid's tooth one by one until I finished that school and move on to the next. I also had hospital privileges, and I had a program where I would was considered public health dentistry. I founded a clinic in one of the local hospitals. And that job, working out in the middle of nowhere, was extremely useful because I had to be resourceful. And then I spent all my time in the schools, or most of my time in the schools. So I really got to see pediatric dentistry, which is interesting because as my career turns around, pediatric dentistry is my most important thing that I really want to discuss. And to anyone, I don't know questions that anyone has of this group, but I have specific things that I want everyone here to leave with, to know, so that I've done my job. So I had a traditional dental school education. I thought my school was great. And it wasn't that we didn't have wellness discussion. It was, at that point in time, this is a long time ago. This is 37 years ago. This is a long time ago. There wasn't a massive issue with chronic health. I was the one who had an issue. I had Crohn's disease, but no one else did. This is a time so long before fibromyalgia and leaky gut and all of these crazy things. But one thing was interesting is that when I was in dental school, one of the first things I did for myself was make myself a grinding guard because I was grinding my teeth. And it wasn't until many, many years later that I discovered, what that has to do with anything. So I graduated 33 years ago and worked in Canada for 10 years, had a lot of experience, then moved to California, and that's where I am right now. I'm speaking to you from the South Bay. Played beach volleyball this morning, and a storm is coming in, but not to make you guys feel bad, it's pretty good. But
I
I'm
was
from
gonna say you
Central
look a
Canada.
little sunburned,
A little
and
bit.
I'm a
Well,
little jealous.
I'm a little red. The filters are kind of weird here, but anyway.
I know I look ghostly, and I'm actually not so ghostly.
There
So
you go.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So I think I love the idea of you wanting to educate from the time that kids are young, because one of the things when I was pregnant, and of course I was like, I'm gonna nurse my baby, and so and I looked at what were all of the things that, healthy eating and nursing, and, how could I, and of course, as chiropractor be getting adjusted, how could I take all of those elements and make the healthiest human from day one? So I actually had an incredibly healthy pregnancy, ate, I never had weird craving. I craved tomatoes and cucumbers, right? So I had a really healthy pregnancy, and a god awful birth story. That's a whole different story. But she was born, healthy as all. Nursed her for 17 months. Now, this is one of the interesting things that I would love to break down with you, is that we know that nursing helps to develop the orofacial structure, and we've always eaten healthy. My kids eaten healthy. My kid was the one that would come home from preschool and rat out her friends and go, Zachary ate his cookies before he ate his protein. It's like my 3-year-old kid is, this is how she's talking. So she has a really good handle on health and wellness. Well, she's a mouth breather. She's had braces twice, maybe 3 times now. I mean, she has a certain level of congestion where, I suspect there's some gut issues. We're going to retest for that. So when you think you're doing all the right, so first of all, there's the people who don't know. So I really want to get people on board with, let's help them do all the right things. And if they've missed a few marks, then where can they pick it up? But then when you have done all the right things, what's missing? So I know that's kind of a big can of worms.
No. It's so I wanna start this with the discussion of who Weston A. Price was.
Okay, perfect.
So I come from, like I said, traditional dental background. I did not learn about Weston A. Price. To anyone listening to this, if you don't know who that is, it's okay. He is still not taught in any traditional medical or dental school. And this is where I really want.
Why do you think that is? I hate to interrupt you, but why is that?
I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay. Okay.
In those days, Weston A. Price published his book in 1938. And where I have all this talk about the blue zones, Weston Price figured this out a long time ago. He said, my patients have terrible teeth. Their teeth are rotting. I want to travel the world, go somewhere where people have healthy teeth and find out what is it? What's going wrong? This guy was so bright. And so we'll spare you the details of what he traveled around the world to all of the places where people still had good teeth. And this was a very important time because it was just at the beginning of really all the hunter-gatherer tribes were really getting too connected and eating modern food. And so he basically, this is what his importance is. He is the modern father of epigenetics. To anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's above genes. So your genes are your 23andMe, your DNA. Those are the blueprints that you got from your parents. What you do with those blueprints, how you access those genes, is the science of epigenetics. And Weston A. Price was a genius. He was the first one to say, hey guys, I don't think that all this disease is genetic. This is environmental, because we were seeing the destruction of the face in one generation. This was not a long process where people think they're eating soft food and they're not breastfeeding and all this is going on over many years. This is immediate. And as I look at the facial structure of the people around the world, I can see that the issue is everywhere. People are not having the proper jaw growth. So Weston Price said these few things. He said, number one, and I'm going to make this easy, vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 are critical. And what he really said is the fat-soluble vitamins that come from eating meat, okay? These are critical for health and fertility. In fact, all of the cultures around the world, even though there were very different cultures, there were some who were in the Swiss Alps versus tropical locations, they all gave young couples specific foods for fertility when they knew they were going to have a baby to ensure that the children would have proper jaw growth. And this is the sad part. It just simply comes down to vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. Without these two essential, I'll call them vitamins, but I'll argue that vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Without vitamin D to bring calcium into the body, and without vitamin K2 to organize where that calcium goes, you cannot have a normal jaw. You cannot have a normal dental growth, and you will not have normal breathing. And that's it. This entire syndrome that you're seeing everywhere, your children, you, me, my profile, I see it on my patients. This is not a not breastfeeding issue. This is not our food is too soft issue. This is a vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 problem, because vitamin K2 is a cofactor for the enzymes that bind calcium. And if you don't have vitamin K2, you're not going to get calcium in. I didn't get second molars. I didn't get any wisdom teeth. And I have a retruded jaw from open mouth breathing and a lack of calcium growth. And what makes this even worse is that, to anyone who's listening to this who has young kids, pediatric sleep apnea is everywhere. And the actual jaw growth, this D3K2 is critical to life, both before growth and development and after. If you are vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 deficient before you hit your growth spurt, you're not going to develop normal dentition. You're not going to develop a normal face. You're not going to breathe through your nose. Vitamin D3 is so essential to keeping the nasal passages from inflammation and colds and flus and allergies. That's how this all happens. Kids start to breathe through their mouth, and when they have their mouth open, it narrows the palate instead of having normal growth. And that makes the airway small, because the airway is a function of the width of the palate. So I see all these kids with the tiniest airways. And to anyone listening, if you have a child, these are the emergency signals. Number one, does your child grind their teeth? I don't care how old they are. If they grind their teeth, they're vitamin D deficient, period. Doesn't matter how much time you think they spend outside and what you supplement. If they grind their teeth, they're vitamin D deficient. That's number one. Number two, if they snore,
where does that teeth grinding come from? Tell us what.
Yeah, well, okay. So before we go into that, because that's going to sort of break things open. And how many people listening to this podcast grind their teeth? Okay.
Probably a lot. Yeah.
A lot. All right. Bruxism, and everyone, when I ask people, I say, hey, do you grind your teeth? This is what people say. Oh, I wear a grinding guard. And I said, and ask you if you wear a grinding guard, that's an allopathic treatment. That's allopathic. Bruxism is a short circuit of the actual control of the airway. Think of it this way. You can live for many, many months, even years, without food. You can live for quite a few days without water. You can't live more than 3 to 5 minutes without air. So in your body, the way we're designed, this is the maximum priority. I'm a dentist. When I start to work on people, I can see. I know exactly how long they can hold their breath for and when they're going to start to choke and panic. This is the area that I work in. I'm working this for 33 years. So all of our brain is wired to our airway and our lungs for breathing and swallowing. That's survival. You can have your legs broken. If you can't breathe, you're dead, right? Yeah. So bruxism is one of the telltale signs that kids, bruxism, snoring, wetting the bed, ADHD, digestive issues, eczema, psoriasis, dental decay, periodontal disease, and stunted growth. If your child isn't growing, they're vitamin D deficient. And I don't care. I created a whole cartoon series called D's Excuses, because this is one of my main messages, because I can like kind of laugh, because I could say to you, you know, how's your vitamin D? Oh, my vitamin D level is just fine. Thank you very much. I drink milk. My doctor's amazing, and all my blood work came back normal. I'm outside all the time. I walk my dog twice a day. I've heard it all. There's a blood test.
I tell people I'm in the sun constantly in the summer. Yeah. I'm Middle Eastern. Yeah. I don't wear sunscreen, and my vitamin D is still only about 55.
Okay, and so you want to, I want to go into that detail right there. So what do you do when you have a kid? You're giving them vitamin D. They're outside, and you do a test, and their vitamin D level is not high. Here's the crazy part. This is caused by glyphosate. So at some point, I want to talk about the major villains, and we're going to get
please.
But deuterium and glyphosate, these are the villains that are destroying basically our health and the health of the planet. And I will give you specific details, because when you hear how this all works, you'll just be like, oh, I kind of knew all that, but wow, you just showed me how the pieces come together. And what I like to say is, I saw 7 to 8 years ago, I saw this puzzle right in front of me. And I was like, pardon my language, holy shit, this is horrible. And my job is to find the right light to focus onto this puzzle so that everyone can see it. And one of the ways I'm doing that is through music and for kids, because Weston A. Price published his book 1938. No one read it. I never heard about it. This information, it ends with me. I'm going to get his information out there. And what would he do? Well, he wrote a book with photographs. And no one was putting a photographs in 1938 or before of like twins with this twin ate sugar and this twin ate the traditional diet. No one was doing that. So what am I going to do? I'm doing exactly what Weston Price would have done. I created cartoon characters of vitamins and minerals that sing and dance, and they are going to sing and dance their way into popular culture like Schoolhouse Rock on steroids, so that by the time these kids are in first grade, they're already going to be talking about enzymes and vitamins, because kids will repeat anything, but they're memorizing Pikachu and they're combing their a pony's hair. Kids need physical and mental input. They need information coming in, but it's got to be fun. So if you sing it and dance it, you'll never forget it. And these kids, this is their formative years, and they're being exposed to the dumbest stuff. It's ridiculous. Don't you want your kids to be have good role models? Wouldn't you want your daughter interested in polypolymerase? It's a strong enzyme that doesn't make mistakes, versus thinking about she's not going to meet her Prince Charming because her feet are too big. We're really ready for some new characters. These characters are evergreen, they're global. I'm extremely excited to share. The information is simple. Weston A. Price, you need D3, you need K2, you need the fat-soluble vitamins. And he said, don't eat industrial seed oils. In 1938, don't eat industrial seed oils. And that was before GMO oils. And that was before how toxic these seed oils are. So if we could bring forward Weston A. Price, all we need to really think about is he was really a genius. Adequate D3, adequate K2, and stick to, and these are the only fats and oils that I want to eat, is coconut oil and beef tallow. I will have olive oil if I trust where it comes from, and avocado oil I will have as well. But if I have a choice, that's what I want. Ghee, grass-fed organic butter. Those are the only fats. And that's what Weston A. Price said. So I consider myself a modern day Weston A. Price, and I'm going to break this information. People are not really going to understand what I'm doing for quite a while, because I've buried and interwoven the science into these characters, but I'm all good. I'm ready to go. All right.
Well, and I appreciate you coming on here, because again, your message spoke to me so deeply that, I would love in any way, shape, or form, while yes, I'm a small but growing platform, you being here is helping us educate people on a grassroots level. And again, this is everything you're talking about is I have touched on in multiple podcasts. So it's really exciting. I feel like I've prefaced having you on for so many people. So this is great. So here's a question with regards to being deficient in D3 and K2 is,
sure.
What came first, the inflammation from the toxicity or the depletion of the nutrients? Or is it like we don't really know, it's a chicken or an egg, and it's so circular. We have to break the cycle.
So I can tell you my opinion, because I see it very clearly. And what I want to say is that they're going to put my epitaph is going to be, he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong. So I'm going to say stuff. And I've been on podcasts that people are going to try and nitpick what I say, saying that when we evolved from plants. What I meant by that is plants came first, and then animal life is more sophisticated and it came later. So we need to think about that's important. And we need to think about biology and what we look like for it to make sense of how we're going to be healthy, right? You can't fix or repair something until you understand how it works and know why it broke down in the first place. So we have these epidemics coming. So the big one is artificial light and vitamin D deficiency, air conditioning, staying indoors, sunscreen. Now, you're too young to remember in the early 80s, my mother came home and she was a great cook. We ate meat 7 nights a week. And she said, kids, here's your sunscreen. We're not eating meat anymore. Meat causes cancer and sun causes cancer, and that's it. And I wore that sunscreen, and we cut out meat, and my parents both died from pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And in retrospect, I saw everything that their doctors did that was wrong. Their doctors cared. My parents listened to their doctors. They followed the orders. The orders were wrong. These were not the proper orders to operate this biology. It's just wrong. And unfortunately, it's taking dentists and chiropractors using common sense and saying enough is enough, okay? What the medical industry doesn't understand, they are the agents of big pharma. So here's how this happened. The Flexner report in 1920 something was the first time where basically the pharma base, the original big pharma was like, you know what? We can't have all this hocus pocus mumbo jumbo, and guaranteed there was a lot of snake oil being sold, but they eliminated all the natural stuff and said this is going to be medical school. You have to have these issues. So it got separated into allopathic medicine. These are your genes. We're gonna do a targeted gene therapy, or we're going to make a medication. It's going to be a blockbuster. Why? Well, it's going to block an enzyme and it's going to do something because everything's genetic. Cancer is genetic. All these diseases are genetic. I had Crohn's disease. It was genetic. It wasn't genetic. It was environmental with a genetic component. And when my Crohn's disease reversed completely after 34 years, I wasn't very happy, but I said to myself, let's be positive. I want to share this information about kids, pediatric craniofacial growth and development, and also understanding what autoimmune disease really is. This is how humans break down. We don't have the right nutrients and we're not in the right environments. So I've said this many times before, but this is a cage. This is a beautiful, comfortable, gilded cage that we built for ourselves for comfort and convenience. At no point in time was there any unbiased scientist saying, hey, you may want to like not put those LED lights everywhere, and I want to tell you something, and I don't know, because I only check things to a certain point, but I found out that the people who discovered LED lighting was Monsanto. That's their original invention. Yes.
No.
And yes, and
Wow.
LED lighting is part of the death of us. That blue lighting, and it's everywhere. It's mandated everywhere now.
Mhm.
So of course, I'm sure that all your people have your blue blockers that will go on. I put mine on 830. So, the back to your point, how did this all happen? Step one, we forgot to live outdoors. Step two, our doctors, well-meaning, got everything wrong. They said, oh, sun causes cancer and red meat, it causes cancer. This is wrong. The two things I can assure you of the most is that red meat is the healthiest food on the planet, and the sun is instrumental in our health and happiness. And failure to have adequate supplies of either will result in poor health and not a great life. And I will stand by that till the day I die, because those are the two biggest lies that we're actually dealing with right now. Now, you can't just go in the sun just willy-nilly and expect it to be safe. And people will say to me, well, how do I go in the sun and be safe? And I will say to them, okay, how do I go to the gym and get fit? There's a lot of stuff. It's going to take a lot to do something that's out of the box, to stop putting a chemical on you that you absorb 60% to protect yourself and go in the sun and it's making toxic chemicals on you. These are things that rational people have to start to think about and put together. So that's part of the information that I'm trying to share as well. So the first thing came the vitamin D deficiency, and things were going along at a certain pace until we had the GMO Roundup. So that's the early 90s where it was really launched in Canada. That's where I got sick from it. That's where a friend of mine who grew up on a farm in Alberta, she got sick. And so this is going to take us to, why is your vitamin D level not high? Because of glyphosate. Glyphosate interferes with the enzyme that activates vitamin D. So your kid could have a very high level of actually the molecule of vitamin D, but they will not be able to convert it to the 25-OHD, the one that doctors test. No one's testing for vitamin D in kids' blood, but I guarantee you it's there. They can't convert it because they're eating Cheerios and goldfish, and they're basically poisoning themselves. And it can be anything. You can't smell it, you can't feel it, you can't taste it. You could have this beautiful meal, and one little thing is full of glyphosate. So, and what does it do? It kills your gut microbiome, it steals your minerals, and it destroys the structural elements of your body, enzymes, proteins, collagen. That's what's happening. So we're being degraded by ignorance because our medical system has been taken over by people who just want profit and they don't really care. There's nobody investigating hormones like melatonin or vitamin D that I personally believe are the true. Melatonin, I believe, is the reversal of cancer. I believe that you're never going to find that information because we live in a world where the American Cancer Society is a captured corporation, and everyone's doing what they're doing, and they can't stop making money and saying that cancer is genetic. They're going to keep on doing targeted gene therapies. Cancer, there is a genetic component, but that's when we get into deuterium. So, all
Well,
right,
and
sorry, because
so
sometimes I get, I don't know if that answered your question. So
yeah.
to me, it's obvious our lifestyles got out of control. We started staying out of the sun. We started eating the wrong food. We started being influenced by vegetarian veganism. We started wearing sunscreen. We started having these wrong ideas that were never debunked because there's money in something. No one's going to do it. When I play beach volleyball, my friends think I'm nuts that I don't put on sunscreen. I have to sometimes because I live in Southern California. I have a t-shirt. I have titanium zinc oxide non-nanoparticle. That's what I would
Mhm.
use, right? So,
Well, and
all
you
right, is
can
that
even use beef tallow, which is
yes,
safe
yes,
for, you know.
safer. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
wouldn't drink it, don't put it on your skin.
sure, sure.
So I use coconut oil and beef tallow. Those are the two. So
Yeah.
all right,
And tallow products are actually becoming really popular now, which I love it. I'm like, this is great that
great,
we're, you know,
great. That's what we
utilizing this
need.
really important fat that
Yeah,
has so many nutrients, and really it's
yeah,
anti-aging. So,
yeah.
you know,
100%.
and you know, when I grew up, I also grew up in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and we used straight up baby oil.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
but we were also very poor. And so we ate a lot of organ meats because it was cheap. So, you
Great.
know, it's like
Yeah, well, that's
you kind of
great.
go, well, I'm glad we were poor, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
But you know, also, and that was a path that my mother, that's a whole nother story, but that's a path that my mom unknowingly was taking that set me on the path to be here today to deliver
yeah,
these messages. And, you know, I wrote a workshop on cancer several years back. And one of the things that I found with doing the research on what causes cancer, which for sure it's epigenetics, it's environmental, it's gut. However, people who had skin cancer were less likely to have any other, like I forget what the percentage was, but they were less likely to have any other cancer or less likely to have autoimmune issues. So even though they had cancer of the skin, supposedly from the sun, their vitamin D levels were higher than the other people who had all these other cancers. And so especially when I'm working with patients who have cancer or their spouses have cancer, it's so important. I had a patient last week who came in and he wasn't feeling great. I know you know, this past year he's been through chemo and all those things. And his wife said something to me and I go, what is his vitamin D? And she goes, well, it's fine. They said it's fine. I go, no,
21 is
what's the
fine according to
number?
them.
Yeah,
20 to
yeah,
50. My patient said, oh, my
yeah.
doctor says my vitamin D is toxic. What is it? 60. I said, well, is that the same doctor who never tested it? Yeah. Is that the same doctor who doesn't know what vitamin K2 is? Yeah. And I said, you can listen to whoever you want to listen to, whatever. But I want to actually interrupt you there. So
Yeah, go
what it
ahead.
usually comes down to is you say spend more time in the sun, and then people say my uncle had melanoma. Well, first of all, if melanoma were caused by too much sun, you'd see it on your nose and on your lip and on
Mhm.
your head and on your ears. It doesn't work that way. People who work outside have a lower incidence of melanoma. What I will tell you, though, is the skin cancer, if you are wearing sunscreen, you are burning the crap out of your face and you are filtering all your vitamin D. And sunlight does so much more than make vitamin D. To stay out of the sun is to limit your life. He or she who spends the most time in the sun shall live the longest, no matter how many squamous cell or basal cell carcinomas you get. And you're getting those because you shut down your cancer repair system run by vitamin D. You shut it down, okay? Keep on damaging the face and kill the enzymes. Don't allow your body to make the enzymes that go and repair the DNA, and that's what you're going to get. And that's why you're seeing an increase in cancer. It's not because the sun's getting harsher. It's because everyone's vitamin D deficient and they have many years of having something that's supposed to be balanced. When you're in the sun, sunlight hits you. It's stimulating subcellular melatonin in your mitochondria for repair for later. Mother Nature doesn't make mistakes. If you follow her rules, you're going to be healthy. Animals in the wild don't get cancer. So, on that note, so that's what I would say. And to anyone who is afraid of the sun, I get it. Cover your face, but be careful. Don't wear sunglasses. Sunglasses are going to block the melanocortin receptor. It's going to tell your body to tan. That's why people can't tan anymore. We're doing everything wrong. So,
Yeah.
if you want to go from there, I don't want to take you,
No,
off of
no,
your topic,
no,
off
that's
of your
great.
topic.
That's great. I love it. And you know, I you know, as far as like, we've had a couple of conversations in recent weeks on this channel with regards to vitamin D and getting that number up and making sure that you are supplementing. And I interviewed a good friend of mine who's a holistic cardiologist, and he's like, well, he goes, you know, he said, supplementing with vitamin D is the last thing you should do, or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but you live in Arizona, you know, like I live in Michigan, you know.
And enough. So if you live, if the vitamin D winter is here. I live in Los Angeles. There's barely 2 hours where you can make D at this time of year. And you guys live north. It's okay to supplement. Why? Because you can get it in fish if you know, you don't. So it's okay. Should you go outside? Yeah, you should still be getting sunlight, even if there isn't any vitamin D. Because one of the topics that I have on my list to discuss is sulfur and something called cholesterol sulfate that people maybe want to know about. So, you know,
I would love to go in that. I want you, I do see a question, well, a comment. Somebody said, I didn't know that about the sunglasses. I've talked about not wearing sunglasses or wearing them in limited amounts. Can you go
Sure.
into a little bit more
Sure.
about the science of why that's so important to not block those rays?
Okay.
And then we can go into the sulfur.
Sounds great. Well, so again, let's think about how our bodies are formed. We look like this because we are highly adaptable human animals that are taking in sensory information from all around us. We take that in through our senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, and there's a sixth sense. And no, it's not ghosts, but if you want to believe that, you can. It's radiation. Radiation is something we can feel. Sometimes we can't feel it. And so these are the six senses that our body is taking this information, and every single thing that hits our body is giving us an instant reaction through epigenetics. There's chemical, visual signals that are saying, hey, so when you are in your car, wear your sunglasses all day long. You're playing beach volleyball and it's an important game, wear your sunglasses. You're on the red carpet and you want to look cool, wear your sunglasses. Other than that, don't wear it. Wear it if you're taking a tram up to a mountain to go snowboarding or skiing, wear sunglasses. That's not natural. If you're going to walk up that same mountain, it's going to take you 3 weeks, your eyes are going to adapt. Then you don't have to wear glasses. If you're somewhere unnatural, like on a boat, and there's a lot of glare, wear sunglasses, okay? But for the most part, don't. Your eyes are a powerful sensor, not just the eyes, but the skin around the eyes is sensing how much sun you're getting, preparing for how much melatonin you need to repair the damage of the sun. Mother Nature functions in cycles, night and day, winter and summer. Think of all of life like a wave with troughs and peaks. And we want to just think about, so here we are as these highly developed animals, and we're sensors. So now you have to think about all the glass in all of your buildings. It's extremely filtered. You're only getting probably UVA radiation, which is causing harm. You're getting no UVB. Don't stand in front of windows. So I like to keep my circadian rhythms by being out in the morning and trying to, I have something called Radiation Rules with Melatonin. It's his show. And he basically is explaining, what you need to do to be healthy. And that is no blue light past a certain hour. Why? Blue light destroys melatonin. You don't want to destroy melatonin. Blue light or artificial light I think it's a class 2A carcinogen. So, and why is it? Because melatonin prevents cancer. Just that simple, okay? If we could start the entire medical industry again and have like an independent body like the NIH or the CDC that wasn't completely corrupt, we could trust that and say, okay, we're going to study melatonin versus toxic chemicals that Monsanto patented that we're going to use. And how dare you even question it? We're going to come and crush and kill you. But that's basically. So when it comes to radiation, light, visible light is what we're used to thinking about. Infrared radiation you feel is heat. Ultraviolet radiation is something we can't see, but it definitely affects you. UVB, ultraviolet B radiation is what makes vitamin D. And so just think about anything that hits your skin or your eyes or anything is going to tell your body something. And that includes going to the gym when it's all at 9 p.m., when it's all lit and you're wearing a tank top and everything. I see people who work outside, they're all covered up head to toe. That's how you dress when you're under artificial light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do the reverse when you're in natural light.
Yeah. Well, and what you're saying makes so much sense also because sleep is so critical. And I've talked about this before as far as minding the D and the melatonin and those cycles and the light in your eyes, because if you're not sleeping, you have to reset that rhythm. And it's something that we're doing during the day that's disrupting the hormones.
Well, keep in mind that I came into all this information through sleep. When I discovered I had sleep apnea at the age of 48, I was kind of shocked. And that's how I fell into all this, because the first thing that happened, so I found out I had sleep apnea. I was still heavy, but I was the fittest I'd been. But I went to all the lectures for dentists about sleep apnea, and I was like, I don't think I agree with you guys. And then I had a 23-year-old petite patient who came in and had terrible apnea. And all my lectures were like, oh, you're fat, you're snoring, it's this weight on your neck. And I'm like, guys, I think it's neurological. So I had that aha moment, like Weston A. Price had his aha moment, because everyone wants to make this genetic. Oh yeah, my father had sleep apnea, I have sleep apnea. Oh yeah, well, you know, I put on a lot of weight, so I have sleep apnea. That's the end stage of the disease, people. You get apnea at any age when your vitamin D level goes too low. And those people that you want to put this gross illness, apnea, is horrible, you have to wear a CPAP for the rest of your life. Those are the people who've been vitamin D deficient for years. These are the really sick people. And this is how it works. This is a disease of the autonomic nervous system. You can call it the automatic nervous system. This is the part of the brain that runs your digestion, your circulation, your sleep, all of your housekeeping duties that you don't have to worry about. That's what sleep apnea is. It's one of the things that we see first, because you feel tired right away and you can hear snoring. It's really loud, but your circulation's messed up. I guarantee you something's not right. Your digestion's messed up. You got something going wrong. And so think of it this way. What it is, the whole apnea syndrome is being stuck in fight or flight and not getting into rest and digest. And when you're stuck in fight or flight, it messes up your digestion, messes up your circulation, messes up your sleep. You can't shut down your mind. That's what this really is. And over many, many years, this changes. I've done a lot of podcasts with Dr. Stasha Gomanak, who is the first doctor that I spoke to when I found out I had apnea. I heard a podcaster saying blah, 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 vitamin D. And I was like, what? And this was almost 10 years ago. And it just caught my attention. So I Googled her and I listened to her lecture on vitamin D. And then I listened to Ivor Cummings' lecture. I don't know if you've seen his stuff, The Fat Emperor. Great. It's called D is for Debacle. And I watched that. And I was like, that opened my mind to this completely different idea, that the syndrome that I'm seeing in my patients and in myself, that this isn't caused by obesity. This is ultimately caused by low vitamin D and the wrong gut microbiome and not enough energy coming from the mitochondria. It's all linked together. So it's a lot to throw out there, but
yeah,
if anyone has
really
any
brings it all home
that.
though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about the money to be made, there's a lot of money to be made in sleep medicine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people go get a sleep study? I'm pretty sure if you get a sleep study, you're going to be told you have apnea.
Yes. Well, no, even worse. So I'm going to tell you something even worse is that you don't sleep right and you're told that you don't have apnea, because that's what's happening. And I want to warn anyone that I had two different patients who were denied insurance because they had sleep apnea. So I want to tell everyone listening, if anyone wants a sleep study, I can do sleep studies, but I don't go through insurance anymore because these guys are monsters. They've gone to dentists who've gotten funding for sleep studies, and they've come in and said, you have to pay us back because of some infraction. So I tell patients, don't do a sleep study on your medical record. I charge $300 or $350. Do a sleep study with you and your health provider. That's your information. It doesn't belong to the insurance company. Stop. Enough of that. This will be used as a tool to prevent you from getting benefits. Oh, it's a pre-existing condition, sleep apnea. Now you're really in trouble. So I say that doctors don't know what this is. They don't know how to reverse it. They don't have a proper treatment for it. Be careful, people. Does everyone have to wear CPAP? Ultimately, everyone will, unless people start to really understand what this is. And there's nothing wrong with wearing a CPAP. If anyone's listening to this is wearing one, good for you. But that's an allopathic remedy. That's only fixing the symptoms of the disease. It's not getting to the root cause. And if you're already wearing a CPAP, you're doing one of the hardest things that you can do. Definitely you can do much better than just wearing the CPAP. I have
So we
treated
can
people.
reverse it
Well,
once
I've treated
they're at
people who've
that
come to
level.
me. I've treated people who've come to me who are already wearing a CPAP who still can't sleep. You know, one of my favorite patients, he came to me and we went through my program, and then I put him on my vitamin regimen, and we're going to make him a mouthpiece. And he says, no, I'm wearing a CPAP, so I don't want an oral device. And then, but he paid me for the device anyway. And I was like, what are you doing? He said, well, I can sleep now. So I was like, okay, I'll take it. But it just blew my mind that there's this poor guy, and he wasn't fat, and he didn't have, he didn't know he just couldn't sleep. And I think we tested his vitamin D level, it was probably 9.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, so vitamin D is for me is a linchpin, because I want people to think about the 3 things that it does. And when you say D3, this is how you can remember the 3 things. Number 1, sleep. Number 2, gut microbiome, and number 3, immune system. Those are the 3 places where vitamin D deficiency is going to get you. Okay, so D3, those 3 things, and they're all related. Vitamin D and sunlight helps to regulate the gut microbiome. Really, really important. The gut's bugs that you want, they want vitamin D too. They want a higher level of vitamin D. Number 2, your immune cells, they're cool. I have a character called Johnny Neutrophil. It's a neutrophil. And this neutrophil, if it doesn't have vitamin D, it cannot make the antimicrobial proteins that it really wants to use to destroy bacteria and viruses. So that's where it affects the immune system. It affects the immune system many, many, many different ways. And it directly affects sleep in 2 ways. Number 1 is through the gut microbiome. But the issue is also, so this is where it starts to get a little more complicated, but that's why I have my book called The Modern Epidemic. If you take the word modern, look at my book cover and put it over epidemic, a D on top of a D makes a B. And that's important. Why? Because vitamin D in the right amount allows your gut microbiome to make all 8 B vitamins. We always got them from our microbiome. We can eat them in food, but we got them in our microbiome. Why do I know that? Well, there was ice ages, people, where there was no green leafy vegetables. Anyone who's like a vegan and doesn't believe we should eat meat, just think about it. Think about months and months with no fruits or vegetables, none, right? We have animals. When you eat an animal, it's kind of everything that you need, guys. Like that's what it is. So, so hopefully, so that's where we start. We start at vitamin D, and it's so major because it does all these things. When I started researching this, I was like, well, the first thing I put in was pancreatic cancer and vitamin D, thinking about how my parents died because they were worried there was some environmental toxin. And I was like, no, sure, there's probably 5, 7 studies. One from Harvard saying people who have pancreatic cancer are extremely low in vitamin D. Gee, I wonder what happened. Oh, but we don't know. The cancer could be lowering the vitamin D. It is. Cancer is lowering the vitamin D. But I've said this before, is that vitamin D deficiency does not cause cancer. It allows cancer to develop unchecked. You can't get into autophagy. You can't do your DNA repair enzymes. And this is one of the key features. And this, I truly believe this, is that if someone ever recorded these statistics, there's nobody on this planet who was ever diagnosed with cancer who had a high vitamin D level. No one.
100%. Yeah. Well, and that was when I uncovered that, when I did the cancer workshop, I was like, it's always a vitamin D.
That's it. It's always vitamin D. And then people like, oh yeah, because what a woman said to me, when I first started asking about people's vitamin D levels, a woman was like, I take 8,000 IU of vitamin D every day. And I was like, wow, how come? And she said, because I had cancer, just like everyone knew. And I was like, oh, okay. And I had already done that research. I had already Googled stuff like nasal congestion and vitamin D. And yeah, you're going to find studies there because vitamin D is anti-inflammatory.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that I have people making with vitamin D, to your point with melatonin, is they'll take their vitamin D at night. And I'm like, no.
Well, hold on. So I want to listen, we can, there's things that I really believe in, things that I'm not sure about. Some people find a difference taking it at night. So I have no problem with that. But when you're in the sun.
Doesn't that block your melatonin or suppress your melatonin?
So think about how vitamin D is formed in your body. So you're in the sun and you have a variant of cholesterol called 7-dehydroxycholesterol. That's the molecule that has one bond broken from the UVB radiation, breaks one bond, and now you have vitamin D. That vitamin D doesn't just jump into your circulation immediately. Over the next 8 to 12 hours, that vitamin D is being absorbed into your bloodstream. It's not all or nothing. It's not on the outside of your skin. You can't wash it off. So I believe people, this is what I say, take it whenever you can. Most of my patients, I say, put an extra toothbrush. Your dentist is driving you nuts about this. Wake up, brush your teeth, pop your D3, your K2, your magnesium, and you're done. Is it better to take it with food? Sure. Absolutely. It's better just to take it. When I first started doing this and raising my vitamin D level, I knew nothing, but it worked. I stopped grinding my teeth in 2 weeks. I stopped grinding. So
it makes a huge difference in mood and energy and I mean,
everything.
I would say
my
just
glasses and well, okay. So see, here's what happened when I raised my vitamin D level from a level below 20 that had never been tested to over 60. My Crohn's disease went away after 34 years. I woke up one day and said, "Oh, I just forgot that I'm not looking for all the bathrooms all the time." My life was ruined. 34 years, age 14 to 48. That's no way to live. And you know what? Everyone has their issues in life. But for mine to melt away, how badly it ruined my life, I'm never gonna let this go. I have an ebook. If anyone wants it, email me. I'll send it to you for free. I charge $4.99 for it. It's not a medical book. It's what I did to reverse my Crohn's disease with all the citations hyperlinked. Because I'm going to say stuff.
What's the email address? I'm going to drop it in the chat for everybody.
Dr. Joel at modernamerican.dentistry.com.
Dr. Joel?
Yep.
Modern American Dentistry?
Yep. .com.
Okay. For the book.
And no dot, just Dr. Joel.
Dr. Joel.
Yeah, Dr. Joel. Yeah.
Dr. Joel. Got it. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. If anyone, this might be a good time if anyone has specific vitamin D questions to answer them.
Yes, I did have, I still have some questions with regards to, one question said that, her doctor said, don't wear sunglasses to avoid macular degeneration, or we'll say, he said, wear sunglasses to avoid macular degeneration. So what's your comment about that?
It's bullshit. That's my comment. So there's nothing in the only things that are really wrong, that are going to go wrong is what we're doing to ourselves. So yeah, if you're eating, if you've been eating a lot of canola oil, if you've been a lot of vegetarian, vegan stuff, do I know that light in your eyes, if now there's these toxic chemicals that are now in everything, do I believe that there could be some activity? I do. I just don't believe Mother Nature doesn't make mistakes. If she built us to stand up like this and walk around with our faces exposed, then it's safe. Okay. Again, if you're doing something weird, you're doing something unnatural. Yeah, definitely cover your eyes. And what's interesting is when I just gave up my sunglasses, I play beach volleyball. I don't need them. And everyone's like, oh, I need all this stuff. And I'm like, I wear a hat. And I don't need them. Why? Because your eyes are a different color than someone else, just like your skin is. And what does that mean? Well, it means that the sun is having an effect. So I can guarantee you that it's safe to be outside. Think of the industry as the sunglasses industry. Think of the sunscreen, the skincare industry,
Yeah, I was going to say, who invented sunglasses? Did Monsanto invent those too?
Probably. Probably. But and just within reason. So yeah, and I just don't like. So here's the other thing: did humans lay in the sun? Yeah, they didn't have heat. When the sun came up, everyone would be out there like warming up, right? That sun feels so good. Doesn't the sun on your skin feel great? Mother Nature ties a feeling of pleasure to what she wants you to do. She wants you to be in the sun. Sorry.
And even if the sun is coming through the window in the winter, it still feels amazing. And I know people who never open their curtains, summer or winter. I'm like, oh my God. And then they have their air conditioning on all the time. I'm like, open the freaking doors.
So just understand that the things that you do on a daily basis affects how you age. This is it. So, and again, we're still going to get into deuterium, because when I say being in the sun is the healthiest thing possible, I mean it. I mean that being in the sun, and of course this makes sense. All of life on this planet exists because of the energy of the sun. Without the sun, this would be a cold, lifeless mass of chemicals that not getting heated, So it's very obvious that all life on this planet, starting from the photosynthetic plants that began to us, we would never get rid of all of that technology that plants had. We just changed it. We use hemoglobin instead of chlorophyll. You know, we're the your why do our blood vessels come right up to, you know, when you go in the sun, that sunlight's charging your body. You're making easy water. You're getting the electrons through the photoelectric effect. Every photon can excite an electron in your body, and you're going to use that energy. Your mitochondria itself literally takes in sunlight and produces energy.
Yeah, when people tell me, God, you spend so much time in the sun, and I will literally say, I am a solar panel and I store it up for winter. Like that's just how I feel. I want to get as much of that as possible because
as you should.
yeah,
It's hard.
so
It's
it
hard too
does.
when you have a
It's
job.
mood, it helps your mood, it helps everything. So I
Everything.
guess you mentioned easy water. I want to talk about sulfur because you want to talk about that too.
Sure.
And we definitely need to get into the deuterium as well. So
Sure.
what's the best segue at this point?
Well, so we'll just finish up. So if anyone has any specific questions about vitamin D, I do consider myself a relative expert in many different ways. I have counseled a lot of my patients in how to manage that. So we never want to take vitamin D without vitamin K2. There's a further discussion argument whether it's MK7 or MK4 that's the important one. Not really relevant for this. The reason you want vitamin K2 is these things came together. K2 comes from the milk and meat of animals that eat green growing grass. The greener the grass, the more the K2. They're seasonally tied. All right, I have a rhyme: when the sun is high in the sky and the grass is green, you'll find these two, their team, D3 and K2. When it's dark outside and the grass is brown, they are nowhere to be found. They are soulmates, all right? So you want to take your K2 with your D3, and you always want to take magnesium. Why? Magnesium has been taken out of the food chain by glyphosate. Magnesium is a cofactor in hundreds, if not thousands, of enzymes. And magnesium is required to activate our fuel adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Without magnesium, ATP is not active. So if you don't have magnesium, you can't make enough energy. All right. So, and magnesium, I'm sure you guys are very well versed in magnesium. So I call these the foundational four: D3, K2, magnesium, and sulfur. Why? What's the root cause of cardiovascular disease? Well, you know, and now, so when I ask you that, what's the root cause? So this is the typical, this is who I want to ask. What's the root cause? Well, it's cholesterol. No, it's not. What's the bad cholesterol? There's no bad cholesterol. Cholesterol is a molecule. Okay. That's what it is. You need cholesterol. If you don't eat it, your body's going to make it. So what's the root cause of heart disease? Well, eating sugar. Well, you know, I can go down that path, but what's the root cause? When did men start having heart attacks? When they got out of the sun and they started sitting in an office with the air conditioning, and they were driving in their fancy car. Those are the first men who started getting heart attacks. So in my opinion, cardiovascular disease, it's never going to be like Big Pharma wants it to be. It's not one thing. It's multifactorial. Mother Nature, she believes in collaboration. She's not so finely narrow. I believe.
But we can sell a lot of drugs on one.
Definitely. But I believe the root cause of cardiovascular disease is a D3, K2, magnesium, and sulfur deficiency. And I believe that the deficiency of those four vitamins and minerals is at the root cause of at least 80% of the chronic inflammatory illness that you're seeing in front of you every day. That's it. And if you correct those, just do that, 20% of the people are going to need to come to you or to anyone else to go further and to figure out, I need more stuff. I need more testing. Do I need this? What do I need? But those four things, restore those four essential foundational elements, and you're going to just be shocked. So number one, D3 destroys, you don't have enough D3, destroys the renin-angiotensin system. That's the system that regulates your blood pressure. And yes, you will find studies about vitamin D deficiency and cardiovascular disease. They're there, and more than one and more than probably 10. K2. Well, when I was turning 50, I called my buddy who's a cardiologist, and I said, what do I need to get checked? And he said, oh, you need to get your CAC scan, your cholesterol. And I was like, well, what if I've been supplementing K2 for a long time? Why do I need a CAC scan? Because, you know, and he's like, silence. So now you have, so you have an issue with calcium staying in your blood vessels. Why? Because calcium needs vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is the cofactor for two essential enzymes, osteocalcin and MGP, matrix GLA protein. These are the two enzymes that will take calcium out of your cartilage when it's in the wrong spot and put it into your bone and vice versa. It's going to take calcium out of your arteries and put it into your teeth and bones. We find these enzymes in the mouth so that you can put that calcium into your teeth. That's why I'm a dentist talking about this, right? So there's K2. Magnesium. If you cannot get enough magnesium in your heart, it's not going to function right. And just Google magnesium deficiency and cardiovascular disease. You'll find a ton of studies. Like people think they just figured it out. And the last one is sulfur. And this is where I'm bringing information to the table because I believe that the true most important root cause of cardiovascular disease is a sulfur deficiency and a lack of an adequate glycocalyx. That's a word that some of you may or may not have heard, but that's the root cause of cardiovascular disease. It's a D3, K2, magnesium, and sulfur deficiency. And I can fight you. I can probably send you 3,000 studies to support that. But it depends who you want to listen to. Who's doing a study? Who does a study on twins where one twin eats meat and one twin eats vegetarian? After 3 months, we can tell that the vegan lifestyle, that wins for sure. Everything is open to.
I was all over that study.
Right. silly stuff. So that's my opinion. So I believe that are there other things that contribute to cardiovascular disease? Yeah, sleep apnea. Yeah, you're choking in your sleep all night long. What's going to happen? Well, the hypoxia is going to break two parts of you. Lack of oxygen is going to kill brain cells. Where are the first cells to go? Cerebellum, the Purkinje fibers. They're the biggest nerves, and they're the ones who suffer the most easily from hypoxia. Why do we have hypoxia? Because the part of the brain that's trying to regulate sleep and breathing can't function. Why can't it function? It doesn't have enough vitamin D. What does that have to do with anything? You need vitamin D to make the enzyme called choline acetyltransferase, which makes acetylcholine. That's a giant part of our sleep cycle. We need that acetylcholine to keep us asleep. When we run out, we wake up. Okay, so that's a big hint there. All right.
So now, we're really just adding these into the system in
yes.
order to be synergistic in all the other things the body needs to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we have, let's say, okay, so you had Crohn's, and any other gut issues, do you find, because when we talk about absorption and we have lack of absorption, or we've got leaky gut, or we just don't have the ability to get those nutrients in, do you do gut repair first? I mean, I'm usually putting people on D straight away, D with K. Yeah. But I still want to be able to do some gut repair so that we can maximize the absorption with those nutrients. So where do you land on that?
So here's what I'm going to tell you. In my Crohn's protocol, one of the most important purchases anyone can make is butyrate. Okay. Butyric acid is a supplement. I have it. It's called the Gut Guru. You can find it on my website, and this will change your life. So if you Google vitamin D and tight junctions, you're going to find that vitamin D is required to have those tight junctions. I don't believe there's anyone with a leaky gut who has a vitamin D level in the 60 to 80 range. I don't believe it. Okay. If there's some other stuff there, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is how the digestive system works. The enterocytes, the cells that are lining the colon, they want a fuel, and that fuel is butyric acid. It's butyrate. Okay. When they get fed that, they produce mucus. And that's how I instantly stopped the pain of Crohn's diseases. I immediately, when I found butyrate, I started to supplement it. And within 2 to 3 days, the cramping sensation that I'd had for 34 years disappeared. So if you have anyone with leaky gut, this is an instant fix. I have a time release butyric acid. And this is the best thing for traveler's diarrhea as well. When I go to, I have a weak system. When I go to San Diego, I can get Montezuma's Revenge. I was in Europe and I love shellfish, and shellfish will give you a bacterial infection in 2 seconds. When you have traveler's diarrhea, no matter what you eat, you can't get past it. 12 hours of butyrate every 4 hours, 3, 6 tablets, 8 hours, 10 hours, you're done. Why? Because when you get that cramping and you get the runs, it's because an area of the colon has been denuded of the mucus. And whenever food gets there, the whole thing just starts to go nuts. This is not how it was designed, and everything leaves you. 12 hours, 24 hours of having that butyrate, it's over. It stops traveler's diarrhea in its tracks. I would never travel without it, not ever, right?
And then
So
this could go for anyone else who has severe issues like that, right? Just
yes,
on a daily
yes,
basis, not even
yes.
traveling.
If you have colitis, you can get a butyrate enema. It'd be life-changing, life-changing. Why? Because these diseases, they're just how certain people break down when they don't have the right nutrients and the right gut microbiome. So sulfur, in my opinion, this is where we get into sulfur because it's so far-ranging. So when we're talking about sulfur, it's something that you may already know and use, and that is going to be, oh, sorry, to finish your question, I don't think it's worth looking at any leaky gut and doing any kind of food stuff other than the obvious stuff of getting rid of processed foods until you hit that vitamin D level of 50, 60. Once you get that, like I said, you're going to be very few people who are having any leaky gut. And then that butyrate is a lifesaver. And again, if you know anyone suffering, and even just like literally that stomach flu feeling, do you take this butyrate and it can really help.
That's
So.
amazing. I'm going to definitely look further into that because I do so much gut repair. And if
Yeah.
I have something else that I can bring on deck.
It's really powerful. I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
this is the one thing that it's an instant change of life
Can we
because
get that from food, butyrate? Where does
yeah,
that come? So
yeah,
what
sure you
foods does
can.
that come
A
from?
healthy gut microbiome, the right bacteria make butyrate.
Okay.
That's the whole goal.
So we need to
And
get the gut
ketogenic diet,
bacteria
so
on
ketogenic
deck.
diet, bulletproof coffee, MCT oil, ketogenic diet, high fat, grass-fed organic foods. And ketone bodies being ketosis. This is the right stuff.
So then where does sulfur come in on that?
Right. So sulfur is an element you'll most be aware of it in MSM. Okay. And that's it's like literally it's a chondroitin glucosamine. So those things, what makes them work is sulfur is essential to create the exclusion zone in easy water. So that's where I want to, talk about easy water. Everyone's in a sauna building the easy water. If you know who Gerald Pollack is. So I've done podcasts with a lot of different people. I did a podcast with Gerald Pollack. I did a podcast with Stephanie Seneff on sulfur. So if someone wants to go back and hear, this is already a couple of years ago, Stephanie Seneff and sulfur, we did this great podcast because she really brought this out to me in a way. I saw her presentation and it was called ENOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase. Is this a moonlighting enzyme? And it caught my attention. It was about 8 years ago. And I saw her PowerPoint presentation. And again, it changed my life because
Yeah, she's
sulfur,
amazing.
amazing. So I want you to think about this. I want to just stop the presses before we get into sulfur and say, well, what are we made of? Well, we're made of cells that are stuck together, and inside those cells, there's some protein structures, there's collagen, there's alpha helices and beta pleated sheets, which are just amino acids all tied together. But we keep on getting smaller and smaller. We have molecules, we have enzymes that are molecules, we have vitamins that are molecules. And then we have the elements. And if you think about what we're made of, we're only made of 5 elements. And it's kind of freaky. We're made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now that puts us in the same category as all of the hydrocarbons, oil, sugar, carbs, and there's only, so that's basically that area. And what are the 2 other things? They're nitrogen and sulfur. That's it. There's nothing else that we're made of. All of our parts that are us are just made of those 5 elements. And nitrogen and sulfur are the ones that make it organic. And those are the ones that are amino acids as well. And everything else, the magnesium and all the other chemicals, they're just there hanging on for a ride. We're only made of 5 basic elements. One of them is nitrogen and one of them is sulfur. So we'll talk about sulfur. And if they were using sulfur as a for farming instead of nitrogen, we wouldn't really be having toxic runoffs. We'd be having very healthy runoffs because sulfur is completely different for the environment than nitrogen is. All right. So what makes sulfur so special? Well, it's in us. It's in some of our amino acids. I think it's the branched chain amino acids, if I'm not wrong. The sulfur-containing amino acids. And what does your body do? Well, it takes anything that you eat, and anything you eat is going to be a sugar or a carb or a protein. Sugar and carbs, they're broken down the same way. And that protein will pluck off the nitrogen and pluck off the sulfur. And what are we left with? We're left with carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And your body's going to process that just like it was sugar or carbs. So if you eat too much protein, you're going to gain weight, but your body will have to take that protein and just chop off that nitrogen and that sulfur. Sulfur has a negative charge. Okay. Sulfur has the ability to hold water to it. So we want to think about water. Have you heard of Gerald Pollack and Easy Water and that stuff? Or is that
I
new?
have, no, I've heard of,
Okay.
yeah, I've heard of Easy Water, but I
Yeah.
haven't heard of him
Okay.
connected to that.
So
Yeah.
he's the one, they did a lot of these experiments, and it was very controversial. But what they found is that Easy Water is called exclusion zone water. It's actually the fourth phase of water.
Yeah.
It's a gel.
Was he on the Holistic Hilda? I mean, she did an interview with somebody in the last few months.
It could have
on
been.
Easy Water,
His
but
message
yeah.
is, his message is very, very narrow. He does a good job. And basically, this is a water that will form around hydrophilic surfaces. There's hydrophobic surfaces, hydrophilic surfaces. And to help people understand this, I have cartoons. Sulfur is king of the hydrophiles, and cholesterol is queen of the hydrophobes. Kathy Cholesterol is terrified of water. The song I wrote for her called I Got Your Back is basically that her and water, they don't mix. Okay. So sulfur is extremely hydrophilic, right? It's going to draw water to it. Why? Because it's got a negative charge. Water is a polar molecule. So I'm going to just stay back, because the take-home message for sulfur, in my opinion, is really worth understanding how things work. And it's going to bring us into our last topic, which is deuterium. All right. So we want to think about, what is water? Well, water is a molecule. What's a molecule? It's a couple of atoms attached together. An easy one to understand is water. It's H2O. What does that stand for? 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. All right. Now, when you have a molecule of water, it's interesting. I call water the magical molecule because it's bent. And the fact that it's bent makes it polar. All right. And this is just the way that this universe is ordered. And there's basically, so we can take that water molecule and break it down into either hydrogen or oxygen. Now, we all have seen the periodic table of elements, and we know that hydrogen is an element. Oxygen is an element, all right? In the periodic table of elements, hydrogen is the first element. It's the most abundant in the universe, and it's very interesting. It's the simplest. It's 1 electron and 1 proton, okay? The electron has a negative charge, and the proton has a positive charge. And when those come together, they can get neutralized, right? You know that a negative repels a negative, a positive repels a positive, and a negative and positive come together. So here we have this atom called hydrogen, and it's got 1 electron and 1 proton. It doesn't want to be by itself, because electrons need to be paired. They want to be in the buddy system. Who likes to be alone? Really? Nobody. All right. So hydrogen can pair with itself and become H2, molecular hydrogen. And why that's a happy molecule, because it's got 2 hydrogen atoms together and it's stable. And in fact, when I say H2, it's very important, because our body has hydrogenases that make hydrogen gas that's extremely deuterium depleted. So we're going to go back to that. So now here's this molecule of water, and this oxygen is big and heavy, and those little hydrogens are light and fluffy. Okay. And so this oxygen is hogging the electrons. They're spending more time around the oxygen than they are around the hydrogen. And that makes the hydrogen technically partially positive and the oxygen partially negative. And that's a big deal. That's the basis to all of life, because it's that bent molecule, and how water fits with other water molecules, and how water helps enzymes form as they're made. This is how we're made. So the structure of water is extremely important. So what we will do is we will literally get the electropositive portion of the water molecule is drawn to anything that has a negative charge. And water will start to build up, and it'll form a H3O2 pattern. And this is called easy water. We feel it as a gel, and that's what's mainly inside of our cells. And this water will form along any hydrophilic borders, and those are our protein structures are all hydrophilic. They're all, the only thing that's hydrophobic is our cell membranes are fat. So we're gonna get
we
this.
form the fourth phase of
So
what, right?
right, it'll form. So basically we have a surface here, it's a protein, and it's basically it's holding out a negative charge. Why? Well, let's just say there's a lot of sulfur. Okay. We're actually going to call it we'll call it a protein, a proteoglycan. So we're going to say that cell membranes have things that stick out of them called proteoglycans. They're either sugars or proteins that will have sulfur attached to them. All right. And this sulfur with that negative charge is going to draw water, and water will start to build depending on the conditions. Things that build easy water is movement and radiation, light. Okay. So Pollock basically found that he took a tube, and when he shined light on it, basically easier water would build and the water would flow, and it created a pool of both electrons and protons that happen when this water is formed. It's called EZ because it's called exclusion zone. And when those molecules start to pile up on each other, that arrangement pushes out protons and electrons into an actual river that your body uses. And of course, the protons that get pushed out, those are ones that we're going to use in the electron transport chain. We're going to use the electrons and protons in our mitochondria. So all of these different protons and electrons, they can flow along your cytoskeleton. And that's where you come in, looking at fascia, cytoskeleton, everything that we're made of. All these collagen fibrils would go smaller and smaller. They go right into cells. Your mitochondria has got a scaffold of all this little collagen microtubules, and it's connected because it's all a network. And so this network of microtubules can channel protons. I think it's like called a proton river or something like that, an electron river, something like that. It's kind of like airy-fairy, kind of like woo-woo stuff, but that's how our bodies work. That's what quantum biology is. It's looking at how your body functions at a level below the molecules. What's your body doing on the basis of the atoms and the subatomic particles, the electrons, protons, and neutrons? It's a completely different way to think about science. That is quantum biology.
So is this where, did I hear you say then that this is where sulfur comes in? Sulfur can help us form more easy
Yes.
water.
Yes.
Okay. So
yes. So
when we're talking about, and is that intracellular? Is it extracellular? Is it both? Because I do body comp testing, and I always tell people, I'm like, your cells should be like a grape, but yours are like a raisin. But yet they're inflamed. They're like, I drink a ton of water. How can I be? I'm like, your cells are dehydrated, but you're inflamed.
Okay, so let's talk about earthing. So you recommend earthing, right?
For sure. Yep.
Okay. Well, what does it do? Okay, well, I'll tell you. When you step on conductive ground, so I'm at the beach, I don't think you get any earthing from dry sand. When I go to the wet edge, the Schumann resonance, the electron flow from the earth goes up into you, and because electrons flow, they're not bound. And what happens? Have you seen? You know what rouleau is? Rouleau is when your red blood cells are all clumping. Yep. What's everyone suffering from? Strokes and all this clumping. So when your feet touch conductive ground, those red blood cells, boom, they separate. Why do they separate? Because the red blood cell and the lumen of the blood vessel, they pull in that negative charge instantly if there's a glycocalyx there. And that negative charge now makes those red blood cells split apart because the negative repels the negative. Your heart can't pump that much. Your blood is being propelled by a negative lumen on the endothelium with proteoglycans coated with sulfur that have a negative charge, and then the red blood cell itself, which has cholesterol in it, okay? And it's supposed to have cholesterol sulfate in it. So that's where we'll get back to that. My cartoon character is Kathy Cholesterol, Queen of the Hydrophobes. Her boyfriend is sulfur. He's king of the hydrophiles. Why? Because sulfur does many different things. So my song called Wet and Wild, it will be released shortly. There's a chorus. This is what sulfur does: deactivate, transport, lubricate, and it's an elemental electron aggregator.
And this is Which form
Sulfur,
of sulfur? Because as somebody's
sulfates,
commenting about
sulfates. It's
sulfur in
sulfates.
their well water, but that would be that's not the form that we're talking,
No,
right?
it's sulfate. So your body has a system. Sulfur is, and this is stuff that probably you haven't heard before. I know it's a lot, but sulfur's
That's why you're
job,
here, though.
that's why I'm here. Sulfur's job is to so it deactivates, it transports, and it lubricates. So here's what it does. When sulfur in the sulfate form is bound to any hormone, vitamin D, cholesterol, any hormone gets bound to sulfur, this now gets deactivated. So that's no longer an active hormone. And as it's attached to sulfur, these hormones, they're hydrophobic. Vitamin D is hydrophobic. You cannot have vitamin D floating around anywhere. Vitamin D will hide out in your cell membranes because it's fat. It's hydrophobic. So sulfur, you may have heard of vitamin D sulfate, and don't let anyone scare you saying, oh, you take vitamin D, it's not the right form, it's not vitamin D sulfate. Vitamin D sulfate is how vitamin D is transported in your body if it's not attached to albumin, okay? Vitamin D has to be attached to something, everything has to be attached to something hydrophilic so it can get transported in the blood. Cholesterol has to get packaged into boats called HDLs and LDLs that your doctor wants to measure and is telling you that this is the root cause of heart disease. This is bullshit. This is totally wrong. So this sulfur and this cholesterol sulfate, this merger, this formation of this molecule is essential for a healthy, really for a healthy everything, for sure healthy cholesterol transport. But this is the stuff that's in your ground substance in your interstitial fluid. This is stuff that's in your fascia. This is what makes fascia lubricated, is having sulfur and creating this slick, easy water. It's what makes a fish feel slimy, all right? And
so is this where if people, sorry, because I want to make sure we hit the points here. So when somebody comes in, you know, and of course I'm putting my hands on them and they feel their muscles feel like a brick wall. And these are not bodybuilders by any means. And, you know, I always say to them, like, you are nutritionally deficient, period. Your muscles do not know what to do. They are locked up right now. The fascia is locked up. So is this also and I say D and magnesium, but this would also then be a case for sulfur, right?
I think that really root cause of fascia that's too tight is sulfur deficiency. I believe that.
So more than magnesium.
More than magnesium.
Okay.
I believe that. You know, vitamin D is a big part of that. But I really, because when you start to think about your fascia, it's acellular. It's not. By the way, there's tons of cells in there, but I believe that it's really critical there as well. And again, we'll go back to proteoglycans. Then again, so like we got the lumen of the blood vessel, you have your endothelial cells, and out of the actual cell membrane, the actual fats that create that lipid bilayer, anchored into that lipid bilayer, there are these projections, and they can be sugar and they can be protein, but they look like trees. And again, you're going to see this in my cartoon work. You're going to see when I'm representing trees, you're going to see it's going to look like proteoglycans. And those proteoglycans are loaded with sulfur with that negative charge, so it can draw water to it. And it's the destruction of the glycocalyx, in my opinion, that allows the actual endothelial cell to be damaged and scarred and begin an atheroma. And if you don't have vitamin K2, that atheroma is going to get calcified inappropriately. So now you're going to have this mess that's trying to heal, getting covered with calcium. Now it's got that plaque. So
it's like scar tissue.
Somebody who has a healthy glycocalyx, who doesn't lose their glycocalyx, shouldn't have clotting going on. I believe that that's why sulfur is really a massive amount. I think it's could be, I don't know percentage wise, D3, K2, magnesium, sulfur, but it's a big one, guys. And why is sulfur no longer in our food chain? Glyphosate. It's a chelator. It's going to take, binds sulfur and just inactivates it. That's what glyphosate was originally designed to do, was to take buildup inside of giant machinery to dissolve the buildup chemicals, of metals. So it's a chelator. It did a great job. You know, the guy who was white washing out the interior of these poisonous machines they were throwing this stuff out, and it was like, oh, look, it's killing the grass. Gee, maybe we could find something for that, you know?
Let's kill humans instead.
Well, and there you go.
So is that going to help then? If I just go back for a second,
Yeah,
because I really want to understand this, is that when we're talking about intracellular, extracellular water and inflammation, and I mean, I've measured upwards of 35 pounds of excess fluid in my patients. And I'm like, this is, you know, in addition to being so hard on the heart, but just, you know, the joints and the brain. I mean, you can't hold that much fluid. So part of that work is to get them to dump the water, the extracellular water, and push the fluid back into the cells, plump them back up like grapes. So is this then typically, if I were to help, you know, put them on sulfur, maybe that's the missing link to dumping the excess fluid? Yes?
it's not something that I have researched and that I can say for sure, but what I can tell you is that the understanding, again, so I told you we're only made of 5 things, and one of them is sulfur. Kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal. It's not the kind that stinks, all right?
So eating eggs, it's not like eating eggs or sulfur containing foods is going to help.
What did the chickens eat?
Bugs and worms and.
Oh, really? And they okay. Well, yeah, that's what chicken are supposed to eat. So remember that even when you get eggs, how they're labeled, what they're doing is they'll say, oh, it's a free range egg. The chicken walked around, walked over here, and then they said, oh yeah, that was definitely that. It qualifies. What are they feeding the chickens? They're feeding them corn. They're feeding them soy.
Yeah.
They're feeding them
GMO
grain.
corn.
And they're monogastric, and what you eat eats.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love eggs, but I will only buy the ones that say, and it's hard. No, not fed corn, not fed soy, good luck finding a not fed grain. You need to find a chicken that's doing its thing, right? And that's why
I buy them locally. I tell people, find a local farmer. I've been to the farm that I mean, these are happy chickens walking around.
But again, what are they feeding them? What are they feeding
They're
them?
just, they feed them food scraps, and she does not feed corn or nothing like that.
Chickens are omnivores. They'll eat meat too.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll be happy.
Oh yeah. No, these are healthy. And I mean, big, plump, orange,
great.
Yolks and
yes.
you know, I'll buy duck eggs from her, and
eggs are the healthiest. And no, you won't have too much cholesterol.
Egg whites. Give me an egg white omelet, please. Well, like, no, eat the freaking yolk.
Keep the yolk. Well, so okay.
That is brain food. You're throwing brain food down the drain.
Look, I ate egg whites for a long time when I was convinced that
we all did.
That was the villain. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's very
I think I ate egg whites through my pregnancy, and now I'm a little upset about that. Maybe that's where my daughter's issues came from. You know?
Well, honestly, yeah. I mean, it's the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. That comes from meat. So, all right. Yeah. So just to make it clear, so we talked about water. It's a bent molecule. When this water forms, it's a liquid crystal that transmits energy. It's really awesome, and that's because when something happens, we have a reaction that's much faster than what the traditional protein synthesis theory is. There's a signal, goes to your DNA gets copied into mRNA comes out, and then your body generates a bunch of proteins. That can't be the only way that would work. There has to be something that's faster, and that thing that's faster is the transmission of electrons and protons in the cytoskeleton, which is a massive network, which changes the meridians from being bullshit to being kind of really cool. So do I believe that this area is associated with this tooth? I don't like that. Some charts I don't really like, but humans massaged each other to break up that scar tissue and cartilage. And yeah, I really believe that bringing sulfur back into someone's life could definitely rehydrate their tightened, destroyed fascia. I went on a journey taking all these things and then seeing a physical therapist who very slowly changed my posture, changed my life. Very gradual. These things take a long time.
Yeah, 100% it takes time. I mean, this is the lesson, right?
The easy water, you're going to see it in your blood vessels. You're going to see it in your fascia. And this is very sulfur dependent. So
is it measurable? Like, how do we know we're getting enough or not enough? And
sulfur? There's no.
The easy water. Are we measuring it?
So easy water, There's some people who want to vortex their water and they think they're drinking easy water. I don't necessarily believe that that's relevant because easy water is formed inside you. This is what forms it. Radiation, especially sunlight of any kind, infrared radiation, so sauna, and movement. So when you're active, you're actively making easy water. This is the way water behaves inside our cells.
So if we know we're just taking those steps, we can just be, you know, I did a hot yoga class this morning in an infrared room. So
this is one of my supplements. This is organic sulfur, and that's my character. Okay. I'm actually wearing my
let's see.
Sulfur
wait, you disappeared.
I know. It's the virtual anyway. So I'm wearing my sulfur t-shirt. But
did you draw all of those yourself? Did you create them?
I did not. So one of my patients is a really talented artist that I couldn't afford. So we met and did pencil drawings, and I took those pencil drawings and I had them colorized, and I took it from there and I ran with it. So yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, because when I say sulfur, now you have an image, and this character is adorable. You're going to see a preview. If anyone wants to go to my website and see my cartoon characters, there's a video for sulfur called Wet and Wild, and sulfur has a dog whose name is Keto.
I actually dropped the link to your website so I'll drop it again here. So you guys can grab that.
So if someone wants to know, someone wants to really understand what I've got, if you go to drjoelgould.com, you're going to see my dental practice and what I do there. You're going to see my music, my record label, and you're going to see my main website, which is called modernhuntergatherers.com. Because we have the biology of a hunter-gatherer, but we live in the modern world. I want people to learn how to become a modern hunter-gatherer. That's our tribe. That's who we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. And getting back to the roots and the basics as best as we possibly can, because we are in an overly toxic world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell this story that as healthy as I've always lived and as healthy of a pregnancy as I had, I kept getting woken up 3 days in a row by an airplane flying overhead at 6 a.m. And I was like, what is going on? And I called the county and they said, or the township, whoever I called. And I said, what? I go, are there flying lessons going on? Like, what's happening? And she says, oh, yeah, you live in Commerce Township. We're spraying for gypsy moths. And I was like, where was the information that you are poisoning the air of my unborn
what are you
child?
spraying? Oh my God.
You know, so they do that stuff all the time. And I just happen to be lucky enough to hear the airplane.
Right.
But you guys, are, you know, oftentimes you're not.
Yeah.
So
so we have to like have hacks. So these glasses, this is a hack because I got stuff to do. I mean, I'd love to, at some point in time, I want to live in Hawaii off the grid. And when that sun goes down, I have a couple of candles lit. I'm all good with that. But right now, I got stuff to do. I got music to mix and all that stuff. So.
Right. I know. It's kind of like when we're not working, we're still working. So, you know.
Well, yeah. Anyway, and I want people to understand that I mean, the stuff. So you've been hearing all these different things from all these different like influencers and people. It's like enough. How many times can you post eat meat? I love it. I think a carnivore post is great, but I want to share this and people can think they can say I'm wrong about stuff. It doesn't really bother me because everything that I'm saying, I'm going to show you the studies. If you download my ebook and you want to know, it's my manifesto. It details this stuff. I have links. If I say something that sounds like baloney, I'll put a link there. I love it in my book. I put this one study, this old research guy from England put vitamin D is this essential for all aging. And it's in my book. He just showed vitamin D and all the things that it affects. And it was like, you know, you're screwed. Vitamin D, we're solar powered animals. And it's not just vitamin D, it's sunlight. That's who we are. So
yeah, we can't live without it. We die without vitamin D.
That is correct.
I think people need to take it more seriously. And
well, they do. It's funny because a lot of my dental patients, some of them, they didn't come to me because I'm a health guru. They came to me because I'm a dentist. So some of them, they're like, yeah, I know. When COVID hit, all my patients who had been taking vitamin D were like, thank you. And, you know, because they didn't get sick.
Oh, listen, COVID. I got put in Facebook jail twice for talking about how good vitamin D is. So
I'm still shadow banned on one of my sites. So it's
there you go.
But anyway, So hopefully, so with sulfur, so it's so important, it's important in your blood vessels. That's I think the most important place it's where it is. And yes, there's a study that said that that virus that no one wants to talk about from 2000 for COVID-19, that destroys the glycocalyx. So there's an aspect of this.
The virus does, or the treatment of the virus?
The spike protein apparently maybe
Oh,
destroys the
yeah.
glycocalyx,
Okay.
which is interesting. So there's a
Do we have a
company.
study to show that?
Yes. If you type in glycocalyx, so you listen, you type your keywords into PubMed and you can get a study on almost anything.
Yeah,
You want
pretty
to know
much.
who
Yeah.
did it or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah.
so there's a company called Endocalyx where they have a special thing that you can buy. It's expensive, and they're going to be shut down because it restores the glycocalyx. This is real. So what sulfur does is this is what's supposed to happen. In sunlight, cholesterol and sulfur are to be joined together in part by an enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, eNOS. And this is the enzyme that makes either nitric oxide that causes vasodilation, or it also makes cholesterol sulfate. And this enzyme will decide what it's going to make, whether it's bound or not. So when you listen to one of my podcasts with Stephanie Seneff, you're going to see we talk about how your body is trying to figure out, is the blood too thick or too thin? If it's too thin, it's got to get gelled. If it's too gelled, it's got to get thinned. And that's where the nitric oxide vasodilation and the cholesterol sulfate is making more of a gel.
So the body will intuitively do what it needs to do.
Judging between, and the only thing it's going to run into trouble if there's no sulfur for it to make cholesterol sulfate. So this molecule, cholesterol and sulfur, get stuck together for transport, right? So cholesterol, as it makes its way through your bloodstream, it's going to find a place where you need to patch up the cell membrane with cholesterol. Cholesterol is going to scooch in and fill that membrane, and sulfur is going to get dropped off before it gets in. It's going to get stuck at proteoglycan layer coming out of that cell membrane and become a part of that easy water. And easy water filters deuterium. Easy water pushes out protons and electrons. Yeah, everything comes back around. That's how this all fits together. Yeah. Crazily enough, Stephanie Seneff, I've been talking to her for 7 years. I was talking to Laszlo Boros, who's a guy who was talking to about deuterium. They didn't know each other, but now they do, because deuterium and glyphosate. Stephanie Seneff brought in this glyphosate talk with deuterium, and the sulfur is involved in that because all this comes together. It's confusing, but that's why I have cartoon characters. So don't be overwhelmed.
I know. I'm like, I'm gonna need a whiteboard for this.
A little bit. Yeah. But again, I have my book. I lay it out plainly, but
yeah,
this is. I
think it's definitely worth the $4.99 you said.
Yeah. So that's my Crohn's. Yeah. But my regular book is free. So my book is called The Modern Epidemic. It's absolutely free. You have to put in your email. I'd love it if you'd follow me on I think I already
Instagram. Downloaded it. Yeah, I did download that. Yeah.
Yeah, take your time. There's a lot in there. That's my manifesto. And this is laying out a completely different way that our bodies work. And I'm not the one who discovered this. I'm the one who found the scientists who discovered it. I'm the one who's putting it together in a meaningful way, because this is enough, you guys. I mean, I lost 34 years of my life because this simple information isn't known.
Yeah. No, and I think you can save so many other lives,
Yeah, and it's life-saving.
I mean, it's amazing. I love that you've been able to simplify things, and I think that's a big problem for people as they get overwhelmed. Yes. The world of nutrition is very confusing.
It's overwhelming.
And I often will say, people are like, I don't know where to start, and I'm like, well, you know what you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be eating donuts every day. So why don't you just stop there?
Well, I'll make a recommendation. Anyone who doesn't know the podcast Peak Human, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's by Brian Saunders. It's called Peak Human. And he's got some really great guests. I've been on that podcast on vitamin D, but go to the beginning and you go into this argument of what are we supposed to eat? Humans are omnivores, but what we really want to eat are the ruminants. And ruminants are important, and it's important to know why we want to eat ruminants, but that's our food. We can eat the grass, but we have ruminants who actually eat the grass that we eat them. We take their milk and we eat their food. They're the ones who convert those grasslands into something usable. We're not supposed to eat that grass. We can survive on it, but it's not good for us. And that's what I say to vegetarians or vegans. And then I want to, so
Brian
now we're
Sanders,
talking
yeah.
about, where we're going to go from sulfur. So just to make it clear, so why it's important, the more proteoglycans that are sulfated, the more sulfur that you have hanging on all this stuff, the easier that you're going to conduct the negative charge. The more sulfur that you have coating your red blood cells, and the more sulfur that you have coating the lumen of the endothelium, the more negative against negative repulsion you're going to have, the less clotting you're going to have. And again, if you can earth every day, do it. Don't freeze yourself where you guys are. But
Well, I'll
if
tell
you're
you,
earthing,
it's been mild here. One of the things that I do every single day is I walk outside in my bare feet and I look up at the sky every morning. And I mean, this morning, December 17th here in Michigan,
nice.
it was about 35 degrees. If it's tolerable, I'm still going out there. But one thing also that I've noticed is I've adapted
Yeah.
to walking outside in a t-shirt and pair of shorts. It's
That's good.
it's what you
Little
need to do.
cryotherapy.
What's
Free
that?
cryotherapy. Free cryotherapy.
Yeah, yeah, for
So,
sure. Right. And then I go to hot yoga. But
right.
it's just getting your feet on the ground, looking up at the sky. Like it's to me,
Right.
it's that jump start of my
Absolutely.
metabolic
Absolutely.
state for the day,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh shoot, what's going on with my computer?
I think your
There we go.
filter went on.
There we go. Okay, there we go.
So where I want to tie this all together. So basically, if you start to Google MSM and why is chondroitin glucosamine, these are very good sources of sulfur. So I supplement organic sulfur. It's called MSM. I have my own brand. I put it in capsules. You can put it in hot water. It tastes kind of gross, but I still take it, and I think it's essential. And because when you start to think about, well, how can you go in the sun without sunscreen? Cholesterol sulfate, that molecule stimulates your body to build a big layer of cross mesh fibers to prevent the sun from getting to you. There's actually, it's an actual barrier that you make when you have enough sulfur and you're in the sun. And it's by cholesterol sulfate. And you can Google cholesterol sulfate. This is all real science that no one's thinking about. Cholesterol sulfate and sun protection, skin cancer. It's going to decrease your likelihood. There's a mutant variant of an enzyme where people who live in northern latitudes, they don't build up as much cholesterol sulfate in their skin. Cholesterol sulfate is an epigenetic signal to your body to start building to protection of the sun. So
that's fascinating. I had not heard that, so I'm definitely going to be diving into that.
well, if you want to get into the weeds, just Google Stephanie Seneff and endothelial nitric oxide synthase. Is this a moonlighting enzyme? It's just a really brilliant, ingenious article, and I loved it. And, is this really the root cause of cardiovascular disease? Yeah, it's one aspect of it for sure. So,
well, and if you can just get to these basics, that's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. No, and really that's what they are. They're all so that hopefully that answers, and why do we have to supplement sulfur because it's out of our food chain? Why? Because glyphosate. Okay.
That makes sense.
So
Which has pretty much ruined everything.
Yeah. So we've gone through the foundational four: D3, K2, magnesium, and sulfur. We've also talked about some of my key other characters: Kathy cholesterol, melatonin. We have Marty mitochondria. Obviously, everything is mitochondria is pretty important. And then we have deuterium. And if you go to my website, you'll see for my record label, you'll see my first animation is called the Deuterium Records Reboot. It's the prequel that it shows you my cartoon characters that are a little frazzled because the modern world has kind of beat them up. So you're going to see each of those cartoon characters go through transformation. Life is all about transforming, and these characters will transform. So those characters are really the key players in our health and biology. So the mitochondria, everyone knows how important the mitochondria is. And what you need to understand is that this is how we generate energy. And then now we're going to be talking about deuterium. We want to go back to that model of water that I talked about, H2O. And just to be a little more difficult, so water is a molecule, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, but there's different versions of each element, and they're called isotopes. All right. An isotope is a different version of an element, and it varies only in the amount of neutrons, right? And remember that everything that you see, everything that's solid in front of you, everything that you can touch, including you, is only made up of three things. There are electrons, protons, and neutrons. Electrons a negative charge, protons a positive charge, neutrons a neutral charge. Mother Nature, she's not perfect, a little sloppy. She didn't make exacts. Every element has multiple isotopes. And let's start at the easiest one, hydrogen. So regular hydrogen is called protium. It has one electron and one proton. Now, when you add a neutron to that, that is an isotope, and that is called deuterium. It is a stable hydrogen isotope, and deuterium has one electron, one proton, and one neutron. Now, there's a third isotope of hydrogen called tritium, and you've heard of this before. Tritium is radioactive. It doesn't exist unless it's been created by the sun or a nuclear explosion. Those are the three versions of hydrogen that exist on this planet and in this universe that we know of. Okay? So let's go back to that water. Okay, before we go back to water, you've heard of carbon-14. That's an isotope of carbon. Carbon has, I think, like 15 or 20 isotopes, and they only differ in the amount of neutrons. That's it. Now, you've heard of heavy water. So we'll get back to that water model. In this universe, there are three types of water. One is H2O, one is HDO, and one is D2O. And what does that mean? One oxygen with two hydrogen, one oxygen with one hydrogen and one deuterium, or one oxygen with two deuterium atoms. Now, the D2O is heavy water, and yes, that's what's used to make a nuclear bomb. It's kind of freaky. But deuterium is a stable hydrogen isotope, and it exists mostly in water. So you're going to find mostly HDO. That's where you're going to find the majority of deuterium in water. You'll find the occasional D2O, but that's going to be kind of rare. And now we're talking about drinking water and ocean water. So a certain percentage of every single hydrogen in existence is actually a deuterium atom instead of a hydrogen atom. But
is that natural, or is that from contamination?
Natural. That's natural. That was created in the Big Bang. Everything that you see around you initially, I believe that we're in a cycle, and that the Big Bang was an explosion, and that space-time is curved, and that eventually everything in the universe will come around and re-implode and cause another Big Bang. That's what I believe. And I believe that this is the part about quantum stuff, is that Einstein's E equals mc squared. What does that equation mean? It means that energy and matter are the same. They're the same. The only difference is how fast that energy is moving. Energy locked into motion creates matter. And you can actually feel this by holding a spinning top, which you can order from my website if you have kids, where you spin it and you've imparted energy, and this thing is spinning. So it's got motion. And when you move it up and down and move it sideways, it feels completely different. It's the same item that you have in your hand. It weighs the same amount, but it's perceptibly heavier when it's spinning, because that motion is allowing you to feel that equation, E equals mc squared, energy and motion that creates mass. So to me, all the energy in the universe, some of it, when we had the Big Bang, some of it got tied into tightly spinning little forms that we ultimately maybe saw as quirks and quarks, but come together in electrons, protons, and neutrons. Because when you keep on breaking down these particles that should be solid, all you're going to find are smaller subatomic particles. You're never going to get there. There is no God particle. The God particle is the idea that maybe God is just the energy of the universe, that when set in motion, it creates mass. And then we're just little budding off of that energy of life or God or whatever. And that's okay. More than that, I don't need to know. But that understanding of those electrons, protons, and neutrons is so important, because everything, what are we made of? 5 elements: hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. What did I miss? Carbon. Very important, carbon. Right? So in anything that you have in your body, in any protein, any hydrogen could actually be a deuterium. You don't know. We can do an MRI and you can see the deuterium. You'll be able to see it, okay?
So you can, it is
it can be, absolutely. You can test for deuterium. All the chemists know really a ton about deuterium, because this is how we measure reaction rates, because the exchange of hydrogen deuterium is a constant. And it's something that's so well known through all of physics and chemistry, is that when you ask them about deuterium, the first thing that's going to come to their mind is the rate of a reaction. And it's like osmosis. So hydrogen and deuterium will exchange to equilibrium, okay, to equilibrium. But our bodies, we don't want that. We don't want so much deuterium in our bodies. We want to get rid of it. Why? Anything that has a deuterium instead of a hydrogen is now double the weight, because that electron and proton, that was a weight of 1. The electron's weightless. It's too fluffy. But that proton has a weight of 1. Add a neutron, you just double the weight. Now, what does that do? Any little fine proteins, like all of them, you just doubled the weight of where there was a hydrogen. Now you took it away, there's a deuterium. It's just put a kink in everything.
So you get damage.
Damage.
So how do we counteract deuterium?
Too soon. I'm not ready to
sorry.
reveal that yet.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, so I want you to understand how profound this is, because this has always been a part of our biology. And in fact, deuterium is so disruptive to anything that it's in, that our entire biology evolved around it. And every enzyme that we have was designed to choose hydrogen over deuterium, except in certain cases where you want deuterium. Why would you want deuterium somewhere? I'm telling you it's bad. Well, when you add that extra neutron, you double the bond strength, or you don't double the bond strength, you alter the bond strength and you make it a much tighter bond. You've added some mass to that. So what does our body do? Well, it likes to put it into proline, I believe. Proline is an amino acid, and the enzymes that make proline, they favor deuterium. Why? Well, proline is important in making your alpha helices and beta pleated sheets, and that's a stronger structural element. So your body's prioritizing, ooh, let's put some deuterium in these tissues that need more heft. And it's saying that deuterium, that's nasty stuff. You keep it out of my mitochondria. And that's the most important thing, is that you want to keep deuterium out of your mitochondria. Why? Because this is where we're generating energy. What are we generating energy from? From electrons. We're taking a hydrogen atom, we're pulling it apart, we're pumping the proton out of the in the mitochondria, and we're funneling the electron along the electron transport chain along the intermitochondrial membrane. That's how we're generating energy. We don't want those deuterons in there. That's what you call an atom that is hydrogen but is actually deuterium. It's a deuteron instead of a proton. It's a deuteron. Okay. Now you have this this heavy thing that's going to mess up the mitochondria's ability to produce energy through its nanomotors. And that's why you're going to see me, when you saw me, I was wearing my red t-shirt. That's the intermitochondrial membrane. You saw those are the nanomotors. This is important. This is how we work. Almost all disease is mitochondrial. Sleep apnea is mitochondrial. Why? The mitochondria can't make enough energy to do what it needs to do. Your brain can't make the right energy. I like to think of our bodies this way. So you say you buy this beautiful brand new house and it's got all the latest appliances, and you're trying to use them and none of them are working. And you call up repair guy after repair guy, and they're like, I don't know what's wrong. This is supposed to work. But then someone finally checks, oh, guys, the power coming in is not 110 volts. It's wrong. Well, none of the equipment's going to work because it was all designed to be for 110 volts. Your body was designed to run at a very specific level of energy that we're no longer doing anymore. And when you don't have enough mitochondria making enough energy, you're going to get sick. It's going to look different.
Does it actually get into the mitochondria, or does it just kink the mitochondria to just sit on top and crush it?
So it's going to be breaking things down in many different ways. First thing you need to know is, the Krebs cycle is 10 enzymatic steps. Each one of those steps is a step to make sure that the hydrogen is removed and that a clean hydrogen is put on there, so it's not deuterium. 10 steps is a very, very long process, but these are all just designed because each of these steps, as we get into we're pumping those protons out, they're going to flow back in through the fifth protein in the mitochondria is ATP synthase. This is an enzyme complex that actually acts as a rotor. And you see my logo. Am I wearing my logo? As I'm wearing my hydrogen hat. My logo, this part here is, hang on, I got to shut that there.
There you go.
The thing in the center of my record label is a cross-section of ATP synthase. This is a rotor, like a hydroelectric dam. And every proton that comes in will spin the rotor forward one notch. And so these rotors are spinning at 7,000 RPM, faster than a car engine. And when a deuteron comes in and gets loaded into ATP synthase, it will make the thing stutter or will break ATP synthase. And so inside the actual inner mitochondria, that's where it's all deuterium depleted water, because those deuterons are not getting in. And that water that's created oozes out, and that is very special water. It's called metabolic water, which is very low in deuterium. And that's the water that we hydrate ourselves with. So your people who are not hydrated, we're making this cellular energy water. We're making 1.5 liters, I think, a day of water ourselves, and we make it inside the mitochondria, and it's the end product of the electron transport chain. We ultimately take oxygen that we breathe and we pop on 2 hydrogens and we make water. That is what our oxygen is for. Oxygen doesn't nourish us. It takes away our waste hydrogen and makes the water that our body wants. It oozes out of the mitochondria, and all the areas where this water is, these are where the safe reactions are. That's why your body's making melatonin inside the mitochondria. This is a safe zone. Okay, the water that you drink, it doesn't get in there. This comes from the food that you eat. That's why the food that you eat is much more important than the water that you drink. And you want to be eating a ketogenic, grass-fed, organic, high-fat diet that your body is going to make a lot of metabolic water with. That's the first way you're going to stay hydrated.
So that, yeah. So, and that makes a lot of sense, is more through the foods. And I think too, I think part 2 is we're going to need to talk about the ketogenic diet, because as a woman who was on the ketogenic diet, I have some choice words for the ketogenic diet. Was probably one of the worst things I could put myself through. And
well, I would like to think of people wanting to eat a deuterium depleted diet. It happens to be a ketogenic diet, but I want you to understand something. Is that before processed foods, we were all kind of on a ketogenic diet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a meat eater.
Were you having palpitations? What did the ketogenic
oh my
diet
God, I was having palpitations. I was having anxiety. I was having meltdowns. I was like, why am I crying? What is going on here? It was horrible.
You needed some healthy carbs, because I'm not, if you have extra fat, you can get away with ketogenic diet, ketogenic. And so again, it's interesting. Some people really thrive on a ketogenic diet and some people don't. Yeah. But I think a deuterium depleted diet is a better way to think of it, because deuterium is actually the passage of time in your biology. As more deuterium builds up in you, that's what your body sees as aging, in my opinion. Yeah. And I believe that.
Well, and I'm not, so I think where I thrive, and I think this is where I always tell people that I actually, I won't tell people to do any one particular thing, but I will help them find the one thing that will work the best for them, as long as it's in alignment with getting their health on track, right?
Cut out processed carbohydrates.
100%. And there's no question that needs to be a part of anything.
Now, do you want to know why people's vitamin D level will go up when they eliminate those foods? Because they eliminate their glyphosate.
Yeah, the glyphosate. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
okay.
Amazing.
So now I talked about this deuterium, this low deuterium water. And what's low in deuterium? Red meat, beef tallow is the lowest, I believe, in deuterium on the planet. And that's because how it's made. The animals, the ruminants, and you want to eat ruminants, the ruminants' gut microbiome and everything in this ruminant has been designed to choose hydrogen over deuterium. And the meat that these animals make is the most filtered. Their gut microbiome is finely tuned. There's giving off a hydrogen gas, and that gas gets recycled with hydrogenases. And all this stuff is keeping the deuterium level low in your body. So the healthiest food on the planet, bar none, is the fat of red meat. Red meat is the healthiest, especially fatty red meat, because it's also got the micronutrients. Fat is just fat. It's just plain fuel. So it's not the most nutritious, but fatty meat is the healthiest thing that you can eat because it has everything that you need. And that's followed by coconut oil. Olive oil is low in deuterium. So sugar and carbohydrates are very high in deuterium.
Well, one of the things I've noticed too, when you get really good red meat. So whether it's a steak or like a roast or something like that, the fat, or good grass-fed meat,
Yep.
the fat is like a delicacy. It's like I,
We're fat hunters. That's what we,
yeah,
you
yeah. I
know,
mean,
that's what
it
we,
feels amazing to eat that. Like that gives you energy.
well, it's
So,
very satiating as well.
mhm,
And,
mhm, mhm,
so, then those are, so again, how does a modern hunter-gatherer eat? I try and eat like I would have been a hunter-gatherer. That's
mhm.
it. So we didn't have fridges and stoves, and you'd eat your meals, and there was time without food.
Yeah.
If you don't let your mitochondria rest, you're going to overwhelm with deuterium. So now this is about glyphosate, it's bad, but once you start to understand what deuterium is, you have to understand what glyphosate does, and that's why I call them the tag team of terror, deuterium and glyphosate. So I've just told you that all of your biology was designed around choosing a hydrogen over a deuterium. And every enzyme, like I said, except for the ones that want that deuterium, all of them select against it because it messes everything up. It messes up your DNA. It stops, your DNA will replicate slower if you have too much deuterium, and the DNA will be damaged by radiation. So deuterium can cause genetic mutations, too much deuterium, and that means too much sugar can cause cancer. So yes, sugar feeds cancer. Absolutely,
So-
100%.
And I have a couple of questions here, which um, so so we want to get rid of deuterium in the body.
Yes.
And what is so by eating those sources, the
Well, you
low,
want to live a deuterium depleted lifestyle. And what
okay.
does that mean?
So we
Okay.
can't necessarily get rid of it. We just have to eat low
You want to lower
deuterium
it.
foods.
Well, so you've heard of eating seasonally and locally, right?
Yes.
The sunlight will be paired with the deuterium in the area that you're in. Okay. So in the summer, when the sunlight is the strongest, that's where you're going to get fruit, which is the highest in deuterium. And our bodies were designed to be in sync with if you want to eat pineapple, you should eat it with your clothing off somewhere where it grows naturally. You ship that pineapple to Alaska and you eat it, it's going to kill your mitochondria. Sunlight itself is building your easy water. That easy water filters deuterium. It keeps deuterium out. So being in the sun, apparently, I don't know if you know, I think Jack Cruz, his work is really interesting as well.
Mhm.
He's now saying that a tan, the melanin traps deuterium as well, and you exfoliate it. And it makes sense because you get rid of deuterium all over your body. It's concentrated in your blood. You sweat it, you exhale it, you excrete it everywhere. It's the major toxin that is found in your body that you need to get rid of. It's what you got to get rid of in your brain when you go into sleep. If you don't get rid of that deuterium in your brain, you're going to have dementia and Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. This is basically what I'm explaining is a failure for our doctors to understand how this model of the human hunter-gatherer body works. We haven't been given the right instructions. I'm one of the team that is here to give people the instructions to say, this is how your body works, people. Now, deuterium is found at I think it's like 20 times higher than any other component of your blood, much higher than calcium in your blood. Deuterium, no one's measuring it. Wait, well, that sounds important. Why are there no mitochondria in red blood cells? When you have kosher meat, why do you salt kosher meat? You salt it to draw the blood out. Why? That's where the deuterium is. The deuterium is where the deuterium is in the blood. So your red blood cells, they could never survive in your blood. It's full of deuterium. They don't have mitochondria.
So would you recommend that then? We salt, if we're gonna have meat, then we salt the meat?
No,
Oh,
that's something that I pull up because I'm Jewish. My mother cooked kosher, which is halal and kosher, same thing,
yeah.
same rules. Okay,
Okay.
those are the rules of deuterium depletion. Those foods are very low in deuterium.
Okay.
So
I've got another question here for you too, just going back. Okay. So does MSM, K2, and D3 have any effect on iron levels in someone with iron deficiency anemia?
yes. So I had a conversation recently with Stasha Gomanak, who you want to Google. I did a podcast with her called Escape Permanent Winter. It's on my YouTube site. It's really where we go into the
What's her
really
last
nitty
name?
gritty. Gomanak. So Stasha, Gomanak.
Got
But
it.
you'll find her site. She was one of the first experts that I really got. So she has found a definitive link between iron deficiency. I'd be very careful about supplementing iron, and I would also want to listen to someone by the name of Morley Robbins, and he has something called a root cause protocol. He believes that iron deficiency is a copper deficiency, and he's probably mostly right, but they're definitely linked. And being iron deficient, especially if you're eating red meat, there's much more to it, and I'd be very careful. Stasha, she got some really great information about iron. I was looking at one of her PowerPoints, so they're definitely linked. I don't have the expertise. I speak on mostly I really believe in, so I just know they're linked. I just know that if you're being told that your iron's low, dig deeper, dig
Yeah.
deeper. Yeah,
Okay.
dig deeper. Morley Robbins, he's done some podcasts. He's a little hard to listen to. I did a
It's
podcast with him. He's got a photographic memory, so he's got to tell you all these. Like, I'm like, stop, stay on track. So yes, I hope
we
that
did
answers
have
that
somebody
question.
comment that said they would love to be eating pineapples on a beach naked in Hawaii. So I think that was a score right there.
Works, absolutely.
There's
Well,
there's
just
the
imagine.
takeaway.
So here's the good news. So what I discovered isn't that you have to starve yourself and eat lettuce and stay out of the sun and keep yourself covered. I found that Mother Nature wants you to hang out and dance with your friends and sing and clap and chant with your clothes off, eating the most delicious, satiating food. That's what I discovered. That's pretty great, people. This is
Yeah,
good.
that's
This
a good
idea
existence. I'll
that
take that one.
medicine is saying this nonsense, stay out of the sun and don't eat red meat.
And don't
No.
commune with people.
Well, and yeah, we'll
You're gonna
say
pass germs, right? Yeah.
right. So that's where we're at. We're yeah, and you
Yeah.
know what's going on. We're basically there's a lot of nonsense. So
Oh yeah.
hopefully this information again. I've thrown at you so much information, especially if
No, it
you're
was
not
just a
really,
little. It was just
But you'll find in my podcast, you'll find that I can't give you everything at once. This has to be a trail of breadcrumbs. I need people to be interested in what I really have to say, because this is what we need. This needs to be a grassroots movement where our kids become educated in molecular biology so they can't be fooled. Because these studies are rigged. The cholesterol studies, they were always rigged. Why? We have a blockbuster drug worth trillions of dollars called a cholesterol statin. I've been quoted as saying, to interfere with the synthesis of cholesterol is to shake your fist in Mother Nature's face and say F you. That's really what it is,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Listen,
what
the
is
body
that?
is intelligent. We just need to stop interfering with its ability
That's
to function.
correct. So you're gonna find that the answer to everything is, instead of trying to outsmart Mother Nature with technology, use your technology to work with her. She defined it. I consider Mother Nature to be the laws of physics. Those rules and regulations, they're steady in this universe, except around black holes. Those are the rules, guys. Mother Nature made them up. Higher power is God. Believe whoever you want. Mother Nature, she's the enforcer. She doesn't care about us. She's gonna be, we're gonna destroy the planet. She'll be around when everything detoxifies. She'll be around when whatever grows next, and something will
She
grow.
got really mad
Yeah.
when they tried to fool her with margarine back in the day.
Well, and
So
that's it. That's it. You're gonna want to see my cooking show called Cooking with Kathy, and it's a cooking show.
yeah.
And her catchphrase is, "Ooh, it's greasy good."
That's great. Well, listen, I super appreciate all of this. I feel like what we need to do, you laid out all of the things, and I feel like it would be helpful now, even, because I always talk about the legacy, leaving a legacy for our kids, teaching our kids. I've done that with my daughter. I try to really inspire my patients to do that. And so I think taking each thing and just pulling out and isolating it, and going a little deeper into each thing would be amazing, just to give people a better understanding, and then maybe come back and wrap it all up again, right?
Sure, for sure.
So yeah, that'd be
Well, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been thinking about it's so much information that what I kind of, I'd love to do some shorter podcasts because, it's hard. We've been going a long time. I know you probably going to want to break this up. It may be hard for people to listen to, but I would definitely like to do some shorter podcasts where I really break this down. And, we haven't launched our social media program yet because I want to make sure we're just finishing up our last video for Wet and Wild. And I perform. You may have seen in my bio I sent you. I'm taking this. The only way to get this out to everyone is for this to be popular. If Taylor Swift can be a billionaire singing about boys that are mean to her, I'm 100% sure that vitamins, minerals, and enzymes that sing and dance to what I think is some pretty good music, I think they can really take over the world. And I think that kids, instead of wasting their time in 10 years in Pokemon and coming out of that with nothing, I think that this understanding of science, and I'm not telling you that I'm right. Everything I've told you in this entire podcast has been about basic physical, quantum, and molecular biology. I haven't made anything up. I've just laid it out in a way, bless you. I've laid it out in a way that will help you to think of things a different way.
Yeah.
Because our doctors aren't seeing our bodies correctly. And just think of this. No doctor out there who's working right now in the Western world, whether it's Canada or the US, no doctor except those very special ones have ever learned about vitamin D. They never learned about melatonin. They never learned about magnesium. They haven't learned about this. And these are the people telling us how to be healthy.
Well, and they won't even test kids for vitamin D because they don't think that it's a thing.
Not important. I know. Listen.
Yeah.
I can tell you a million things, and I've been working on this problem for a long time, including working with some experts on trying to get an inexpensive, immediate vitamin D test, which would change reality.
Oh, that would be amazing.
It would be amazing because when people find out what vitamin D is and what it does, it's hard because you don't want to stick your kid to get a level, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And this goes, so to anyone who's been following this, so what's eczema and psoriasis? Well, I had eczema and psoriasis for 2 years until I raised my B vitamin level and it went away.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have eczema or psoriasis, you have a child that does, if you raise their vitamin D level, the eczema or psoriasis will go away and it'll go away quickly.
Well, one of the common things too is on the back of the arms when I'm evaluating patients and I'm like, like you've got some deficiencies going on there. They're like, what? I've had those all my life. Well, then you've had deficiencies all your life.
Well, that's it. So I say to anyone who has any issues, I say, raise your vitamin D level to 60 and wait 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Take your K2, take your magnesium, take your sulfur, and just wait 3 months and see what hasn't resolved. And I deal with this every day. A girl in my volleyball group with eczema and psoriasis, I'm like, it's not working. And I said, how long have you been supplementing your vitamin D for? Well, I've been taking a lot. And I'm like, I told you that if you want to raise your level, you should take 20,000 IU at least every day with K2 and magnesium. And that's the upper limit of what I say to take if you really want to raise your level. And she's not following through. Right. And she's like, it's not working. I'm like, look, science works for everyone. Okay. Science works for everyone. If you get to a level of 60 in your vitamin D, you still have eczema or psoriasis, then you need to look into your B vitamins. You're not making enough B vitamins. And if you supplement your B vitamins, we see this on kids. Parents, what should I do? My daughter has eczema, give her this B vitamin. It's a liquid. Oh, it disappeared in 2 days. Oh, how come my doctor doesn't know that? Because no one's listening to me.
Right.
What can I,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is amazing. I appreciate your time. You have given us so much value and so much information. And I'm going to go back through and I'll do a recap for everybody. But in the meantime, I'd love to stay connected.
Sure.
I'll, definitely, I'm going to go through your book and then would love to just stay connected and learn more from you because I think this is really valuable the way you've laid it out. And of course, I always have a mad love for trying to bring in the next generation and give them the information, empower them to own the information, basically, right?
Well, that's it. And how do you convince somebody to do something that they don't want? Do people come to me and go, oh, you should go to the school system with your cartoons? I'm like, no, that's the worst place to go. First of all, big food and big farm will kick it right out of there.
Yeah. I was going to say, you got to change the school lunch program first. There's
no.
Yeah.
No, this needs to take root through popular culture, and people have to be excited in it, not because they're learning something, because it's cool and the music is fun and they get to dress up as the characters for Halloween instead of you can't dress up as anything because it's not politically correct. I can guarantee you, I design my characters for Halloween. I design my characters to perform in the metaverse, and I design them to sing and to dance because that's what people want to do. They want to sing and dance. Watch TV. You got The Voice. You got the Greatest Talent. All this stuff. It's all the same. How do you get into, how do you get into these kids' heads? Make it fun, make it catchy. So to anyone who's listening, please go to my record label, watch a couple of my videos, follow me on Instagram. I'm looking for the right people to launch this. I've got, I'm in Los Angeles, but I have pitched this to certain people and they just don't see it. No one's going, Marty, mitochondria, you wrote a song called Metabolic Flexibility that you play live? Yeah, I do. What's it about? It's about how to be metabolically flexible. It's about what your mitochondria wants. I'm doing this from first person. So this is my job. My job is to take this information, even at its most basic, keep it simple, D3, K2, magnesium for jaw growth, people. I'm a dentist with a background in pediatrics. If that's the one thing that I can do is get this out there and people start to identify that, that's great. If it saves you $40,000 in orthodontics, even better. I'm willing to put all of my people out of business because that's kind of what we need to do. The healthcare industry, it's grotesque. It's just full of people who are sick and struggling, and people will find something, the people always say, do you know Dr. So-and-so? Do you know Dr. Gundry? I'm like, yeah, but I've got my stuff. Don't tell me about other people. I got my stuff. This has to be fun, people. It has to be fun, right?
Yeah.
Gotta make this part of society. So.
I would love everybody to just make sure they go and follow you. I actually put the links to your Instagram and your website. It's in the show notes, which I have to redo because I'm realizing they're in the original show notes that we couldn't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah,
but that's okay. All I have to do is copy and paste it into this show, and we're off to the races. So, yeah, if you guys are looking to connect with Dr. Gould, make sure you check back with me tomorrow because I'll get all that edited up for you. And yeah, I appreciate your time.
I'm looking for media. I'm looking for media connection. So anyone, I'm basically almost ready to launch a planetarium film because I feel like that there's a much lower bar to get that into the planetariums and all the kids in grade school see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Yeah. So anyone who has
we have a couple really good ones here in the Detroit area. So
yeah,
I might know a couple.
I'm looking for those connections. So I'm hoping in the new year to be launching all this stuff. And it should be a lot of fun.
Okay, perfect. I'll put some calls in because I know a lot of people who know downtown Detroit quite a lot, or quite a bit. So might be able to get you some connections over here.
Hey, sounds great.
Awesome. All right. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much
for your time. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Sorry about the delays at the beginning.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping back in over here. So yeah, thanks so much. And yeah, we'll definitely connect very, very soon again.
Awesome. Okay.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye.